Chapter 1381. Demon Emperor June and the others were all aggrieved. You were all prepared. You were sure that your forces would not be destroyed. Didn't that mean that we, who were not prepared, would be used as cannon fodder in this cultivation tribulation? Damn it. Did you ask for our opinion? If we were not careful, we would be represented. However, there was always fairness in the cultivation tribulation. That was the orthodoxy. The orthodoxy was preserved, but it did not mean that this race and this sect were preserved. In other words, everyone understood that as long as there were people in this world who preached Buddhism, then Buddhism existed in this world. As for whether Buddhism existed or not, it was another matter. There was an essential difference between the two. In other words, if Buddhism existed, the orthodoxy would still exist. This principle was very simple. However, even though Junti could accept it, others might not be able to accept it. Even if you were destroyed, your orthodoxy would still exist. If we were destroyed, would there be nothing left? There was no such logic in the world. Therefore, when everyone walked out of the Purple Cloud Palace, they were all angry. Was this fate? I don't believe in heaven. If heaven wants to destroy me, then I will go against heaven. Junti also went against heaven's initiation tribulation, which led to the current situation. If Junti can go against heaven, can't we? When Zhuo walked out of the Purple Cloud Palace, his heart was filled with confusion. Suddenly, she came. Suddenly, she left. In the middle, she heard some words in confusion and witnessed some things. But it seemed that she did not understand. Why did she come? Why did she leave? What happened in the middle? She was confused and in a trance the whole time. But as soon as everyone walked out of the Purple Cloud Palace, they immediately went their separate ways and disappeared without a trace, leaving the two of them behind. Damn, no one cares about us. Zhuo was a little annoyed. At least there should be a good beginning and a good ending, right? It seems that no one cares about us. We have to rely on ourselves for the return journey. Zhuo pouted. There was some panic in her eyes. She really felt that she had come into contact with a lot of great people and heard some incredible things. This was simply too horrifying. Duo, I'm afraid that these things here will have a far-reaching impact. We have to hurry back and tell Dad, Mom, and Godfather. All right. After making up their minds, the two of them quickly left and returned to the human race in the astral souls. After the leaders of the various clans left the Purple Cloud Palace, apart from Duo and Zhuo, there were 3 waves of attacks. Each of them was riddled with scars. Of course, there was no need to elaborate on this. Everything was as it should be. Their standpoint was already clear. If there was an opportunity to eliminate the enemy, it would be strange if they did not take action. Naturally, it was not strange at all. Duo decided to return almost immediately. They left as fast as they could, but they managed to avoid a lot of trouble. As soon as the two of them left, Demon Emperor Dijun, Dong Wang Tai Yi, and Demon Empress Shihi tore through space and rushed back. Where's he? Why are you walking so fast? The 3 of them were a little depressed, and they didn't know where to vent their anger. Demon Empress Shihi was especially disappointed. During this trip to the Purple Cloud Palace, the Demon Clan was naturally overjoyed to have obtained sage position. However, the aura of the 3-legged golden crow on Zhuo's body also moved the 3 of them. They had been worried for a long time. However, due to various considerations, it was not a good time to make a big fuss. The 3 of them were not in a hurry. They did not expose this layer of karma on the spot. When this meeting came to an end, they would have plenty of time to figure out the situation. However, the 3 of them did not expect that as soon as they left the Purple Cloud Palace, they were pulled away by the Prime of Tongtian, who said that there was something important to discuss. However, after following them for a while, the Prime of Tongtian said that it was not a big deal and that it would not be too late to discuss it later. Hence, he left on his own. The 3 of them had been fooled. When they came back to look for him, he was already gone. One could imagine how depressed they were. On the other side, Primeval Origin also left with Zhuan and the demon ancestor Luo Ho. Well, to be more precise, it should be said that the 3 sages had taken the demon ancestor away regarding the joint invitation of the 3 of them. Even someone as strong as the demon ancestor Luo Ho could only follow them to see what was going on. Unexpectedly, as they walked, Primeval Origin left on his own and disappeared halfway. Then, Zhuan-Ti wanted to come back to take a look. Coincidentally, Luo Ho also wanted to come back to take a look. He was still thinking about the aura he had sensed on Zhuo Xiaoduo. That was the aura of the god-slaying spear. He could not be wrong. However, Zhuan-Ti also went back when Zhuan-Ti suggested that they should hurry back. Luo Ho was naturally happy to see this happen. If the two sages of the West also went back, there would be more variables if they sensed the aura of the god-slaying spear on Zhuo Xiaoduo. However, by the time Luo Ho came back to look for him, he would be even later than the three of them. Naturally, he would not be able to see anything. That kid is a human cub. Now that the war between the clans is a foregone conclusion, we will see him sooner or later. There is no need to rush. Everyone thought so. After all, they were all experienced experts who had cultivated for countless years. Their patience was far better than that of ordinary cultivators. In particular, they clearly realized that this kid seemed to be favored by all parties. Primeval Tontian favored him a lot, which was publicly acknowledged by everyone present. There was also the junior of the Ling clan who had just attained the holy position. He seemed to be called Wan Minsheng and had a deep relationship with him. If they really wanted to touch him, it would be difficult to do so. There would be many consequences, at least if they really used force. As long as they were not completely beaten to death, they might face Primeval Tontian, Zhuan-Ti, or even Her Majesty Empress. If they faced all five of them at the same time, even the demon ancestor Luo Ho would probably die in an instant. It was rare to be lucky. What? The Flood Witch and Zhuo Chonglu were so shocked that they stood up together. After all, the news that Zhuo Xiaoduo brought back from his trip was too explosive. It was simply earth-shattering. Zhuo Chonglu was more concerned that the situation was so serious that it had gone out of control. At least, it was beyond the scope of what the human clan of the Astral Souls could deal with. Zhuo Zhonglu, Wu Yuding, and the rest of the Star Soul Realm's upper echelons were not weak, but at the end of the day, they were still considered aboriginals. They were humans who had only reappeared after the destruction of the continent. They did not have much of an impression of the people that's what Xiaoduo had mentioned. However, because the Umno Alliance continent where the flood which was born had been divided, it had not experienced the apocalypse. Therefore, he still had a clear understanding of the inheritance of the old people and even the ancient legends. Whether it was the Shangqing, Yuqing, Taiqing, Zhuan-Ti, these people were all supreme immortals and Buddhas that only existed in legends. It was precisely because he knew about it that he was even more aware of how serious this matter was. To be able to make all of these existences jump out and make careful arrangements, it was not hard to imagine the scale of this cataclysm. All the saints gathered and rearranged their positions to deal with the great calamity. 9 saint positions? In the end, there are only 8? There's still one left? The flood which was very interested. There is indeed one empty seat, so Xiaoduo said. Oh, Flood touched his chin and couldn't help but be tempted. That was a saint position. He didn't know if he had the chance to sit on it. Elder One also got a saint position. The Flood, which was even more envious. He could ignore everything in the world and didn't care. However, he couldn't ignore the saint position. Based on the Flood Witch's understanding of Elder Wan's cultivation base was naturally extremely high, even higher than his own. Even though he had already reached the level of Ancestor Sorcerer, there was still some difference in his cultivation base. However, in terms of combat strength, she was much better. It was just that they belonged to the same camp, and Elder One had never been known for his combat strength. He only knew who was stronger and who was weaker. Therefore, the Flood which would not look for Elder One to test her skills. However, now Elder One, who was not even in the top 3 in terms of combat strength in the 3 continents like the Astral Souls, actually got a saint position. This result made the Flood which feel like she had eaten a lemon. The root of her teeth was a little, not very strong. However, the Flood which just thought about it and put this matter aside. Through Zhuo Xiaoduo's narration, he was very clear that although the position of a saint was good, it wasn't something that anyone could sit on. It wasn't based on one's cultivation base or combat strength. Otherwise, no matter who it was, it wouldn't be Min Sheng Wan Lao's turn to take the position. Now that he sat on the same position, it didn't mean that he was definitely a saint that in comparison, Rendezvous had also appeared at this gathering and sat on a saint position. This made the flood which more concerned and excited. Our Rendezvous has appeared in the world again, and he sat on a saint position. As expected, the heavens are protecting our race. Our race has a chance to rise again. The flood which was inexplicably excited. This was the first time in her life that she had heard news about a living Zhu Wu. This news was like a shot of adrenaline to the entire Wu people. Not to mention the fact that the man in white had said that the 8 ancestral sorcerers were still alive but had been sealed by someone. Although the flood had already begun to investigate this matter, compared to the 8 ancestral magi who had been sealed, and the situation was definitely hidden and difficult to investigate. The ancestral magi of Earth who had reappeared were the seniors of the magi, who were easier to find and contact. The more the flood which thought about it, the more excited she became. Gradually, she lost her composure. How many years had it been? The Wu people had always been walking in the cracks. No matter what kind of strong enemies they faced, they had to fight by themselves. They didn't have anyone to rely on. They could only swallow their broken teeth and swallow their blood. They could only cultivate harder to become stronger and avoid being bullied by others. The main reason why the Wu people had been fighting against the astral souls, the human race, and even the Tao League was that they didn't want to lose their sense of crisis. The other 11 of the 12 great shamans weren't great shamans from the beginning. Every one of them had fought and been beaten up countless times since they were young. Well, half of them were beaten up by their opponents, and the other half was beaten up by the Flood Witch. The Flood Witch was able to become the #1 great shaman early on for a reason. His existence had never been surpassed. Now, the return of the various races had cast a long shadow over the Wu people's heads. No matter if it was the monster race, the Tao League, or the demon ancestor, that everyone knew that the Wu people were no match for them. But no one in the Wu people thought about retreating. No matter what we face, we only have one thought: to charge forward. If we don't charge forward to fight back, what hope do the Wu people have? On the other hand, if we charge forward and still can't fight back, the Wu people will still be finished. Since we're going to be finished, why don't we fight with all our might? Fight to be the first to die, and let the Wu people be destroyed after we die. The Flood, which didn't have a worthy opponent like Zhuo Changlu when he first started fighting against the astral souls. The 7 swords of the Tao League could definitely suppress the Flood Witch, but the other great shamans of the Umno Alliance weren't there for show. Why wouldn't they join forces with their opponents? The reason was simple. The Umno Alliance never planned to destroy the astral souls and the Tao League. It was because they didn't have any helpers, allies, or people to rely on. They used tens of thousands of years of fighting to cultivate their competitors, so that they could become their allies in the future. But not everyone could become their allies. They had to have enough strength, enough weight, and enough value. The Flood Witch waited for a long time, but he only met Zhuo Changlu. The others, even the leader of the Tao League, Taoist Lei, couldn't catch his eye. Facts also proved that the Flood Witch's waiting and cultivation of competitors had indeed improved the overall strength of the Umno Alliance. It had also allowed him to rise to the top of the Wu people, the realm of Zhu Wu. However, when the Grand Master of Heaven shot his sword into the 9 heavens and announced his return, the Flood Witch was still so envious that his eyes turned blue. Look at his master. Look at his senior. Look at him. Whatever happened, someone would step forward and make decisions. But now, Zhu Wu had also reappeared in the world, although she hadn't come back yet. But there are still shamans in this world. The Flood Witch roared as if she was venting her anger, and all of a sudden, he also firmly believed in another sentence, the sentence that had not been verified yet. Brother Zhuo, the Flood Witch turned around and said, in a few days, the Wu people will take action. This will have a far-reaching impact on the future and is very significant. I hope you can help us when the time comes. Zhuo Changlu smiled and said, are you talking about going to the Demon Emperor's palace to try to save Zhu Wu? That's right. Aren't you afraid that it's a trap? The man in white, must be from the Western sect. It's not surprising that they used us to weaken the strength of the demon race. But they wouldn't set up such a trap for no reason, especially one that doesn't benefit them. Moreover, the person who said that was most likely one of the two saints of the Western sect. Saints, their words are law. The Flood Witch said, "In that case, let's go." Zhuo Changlu said, "But it's not good to have too many people involved. I mean, we can't have more than 10 people, and we have to be very careful about the choice of people. Dan Kong can skillfully control the power of space. He can go. Raging Fire can go. Poison can also go. If Jin Lin can improve his resistance, he can also go. The Wind Emperor has comprehended the speed of wind. He can increase the movement speed of all of us, so he can also go." The Flood Witch said, "On our side, the 6 of us will be the main force. But after thinking about it again and again, I'm sure we don't have enough high-end combat power. If we are intercepted by the Demon Emperor, we can't even escape unscathed, let alone save Zhu Wu." And Brother Zhua and Madame, after splitting open the sky, their strength has improved further. In terms of combat power, they should have reached the level of Sage to be. Flood's words were full of embarrassment. After so many years in his life, this was the first time he asked for help. He talked a lot and finally got to the key point. Zhuo Changlu laughed. "Don't worry, Brother Hong. Ting and I will go to help. I think the 8 of us will be enough." Flood smiled. "Thank you." So Xiaoduo raised his hand. "Dad, Godfather, Ninian Cat and I will go too. Let's make 10 people. It'll be perfect. Do you think you're on the same level as Saints because you went to some meeting by chance? What are you going to do? You'll only make trouble if you go." The Flood Witch, Zhuo Changlu, and Wu Yuding all scolded. "You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. We're very powerful now. How can we only make trouble?" Zhuo Xiaoyan was not convinced and said with her cheeks puffed up. Wu Yuding stood up with a livid face. "Let's go. I'll fight with you. I like to see how hard your wings are." "Mom." Zhuo Xiaoduo rolled his eyes submissively. "Mom." Zhuo Xiaoyan rolled her eyes blatantly. "Open your void-destroying tower. Get in here." Wu Yuding was aggressive. This time, she must teach these 2 little things an unforgettable lesson. "I'll let you 2 know that the world is big, and there are many masters. Your mother is still your mother. Teaching you 2 a lesson is still like playing a game. I'll let you 2 young cucumbers know that the older the ginger, the spicier it is." Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan followed indejectedly. Zhuo Changlu and the Flood Witch looked at each other and restrained their momentum as much as possible and followed in. After all, as far as they knew, at least not long ago, the void-destroying tower was gradually unable to bear the momentum of the Flood Witch who had reached Zhu Wu's level. At present, Zhuo Changlu and Wu Yuding had made a breakthrough and reached a level similar to the Flood Witches. They would have to fight later. One wrong move could cause the void-destroying tower to collapse from the inside out. However, as soon as the 3 of them entered, they immediately sensed that the void-destroying tower had changed again. It could even be said that it was completely different from before. It was not the same thing. Now, the void-destroying tower was like a real continent. They did not know the height of the sky and the depth of the earth. The sky was clear, the clouds were leisurely, and the atmosphere was pleasant. The birds were singing and the flowers were fragrant. Spiritual chi was everywhere. And the most important thing was that the feeling of being restrained and unable to exert their full power was gone. According to the judgment of Flood and the other 2, even if an expert who was several times stronger than them, or even at the level of a sage, fought in this space, it would not affect the stability of the whole world. Damn, what was going on? This change, this evolution, this progress, it was too damn amazing. The 3 of them could not help but feel surprised. They were even thinking about bringing them along. Just based on this void-destroying tower, with this tower, at least the chance of escaping unscathed would increase by 30%. At least 30%, in a place where no one could see. In the villa of Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan in the void-destroying tower. On the sofa, a picture was lying crookedly on the sofa. It was like a drunk person lying on the sofa, sprawled out on all fours. There was no image to speak of. The Hua Huang sword fluttered and quickly and steadily came to the picture. On the hilt was a cup of spiritual water. Boss, please have some tea. Just turn it upside down. Boss, no matter what, you are still picture. There must be some places that are not water resistant. You are the one who is not water resistant. Your whole family is not water resistant. The picture scolded wildly. I am formed naturally from the mysterious substance that separated heaven and earth. I'm not afraid of water. What do you know? Pour the water. Immediately, right now. You don't even know how to serve people. What's the use of you? Splash. That cup of spirit water was immediately poured onto the diagram. In an instant, abundant spiritual energy slowly seeped into it, and the rest of the pure water fell onto the sofa. Comfortable, really comfortable. Suddenly, the picture cracked open on its own, like a mouth that opened and closed. It feels good when there's no one to care about me. It feels so good. Cough. The Hua Huang sword was speechless. No one cares about you, but what about me? How did I suddenly go from no one to someone? Is there still any justice in this world that I have never seen anyone use a sword like this? You want me to use the tip of my sword to tickle you, and I can't even scratch you. Was this even something a human would do? Oh, I almost forgot that you're not human. I'll use the tip of my sword to cook for you and make delicious food for you. Who would play with their swords like that? Didn't I just say, fuck, how did this thing come in when you first came in? Wasn't it just one sentence? Do you have to hold a grudge until now? Why are you so narrow-minded, 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 narrow-minded? You don't have anything. Swish, swish. Wah, wah, wah. Huff, huff, huff. 2 gusts of wind, and then 2 voices rang out. It was Shao and the god-slaying spear. The 2 of them were almost completely destroyed by Grandpa Tuesday. He had been taken into the painting and fiercely trained. Training in all kinds of environments was nothing, but he was constantly on the verge of having his soul destroyed. Wasn't that a bit too much? Shao and Yin Shirsi had already cursed more than 1,000,000 times in their hearts. They had been in the world of the painting for thousands of years. Thousands of years of life and death were just a hair's breadth away from each other. They could easily end up in the netherworld, forever separated by heaven and man. Shao felt that he had lived up to the name of the 3-legged golden crow by not breaking down. Yin Shirsi felt that he had lived up to the original god-slaying spear by being able to keep his body and soul intact. Dabai and Jiao were in the same boat as them. They had not come out yet. Well, there was another gourd inside, one that came with Grandpa Tuesday. The 3 gourds combined could fight against Grandpa Tuesday. Although Bai and Jiao were still trapped in the world of the painting that Grandpa Tu had created, as long as another person intervened, this experience would come to an end. This situation made Grandpa Tu, who had been very successful recently, furious. He vented all his anger on the Hua Huang sword, who was of the same generation as him. He caught the Hua Huang sword spirit and beat it up, but it was not enough. Gradually, he beat it 3 times a day. Later, the Hua Huang sword's elder was reduced to a servant who served Grandpa Tu, who had a bad temper, to avoid being beaten up. However, he often got beaten up because he did not serve Grandpa Tu well. Now, the Hua Huang sword missed Xiaoduo very much. Although Xiaoduo was a despicable person who had reached the invincible realm, he was just a despicable person. This hateful Tai Chi diagram was not just a despicable person. Whoosh! Bye-bye and Jiao came out and jumped onto the diagram. Big brother 2, when are you going to introduce third brother to our mama? He still has a stomach full of elixirs to give. There's no hurry. Grandpa 2 liked Bye-bye and Jiao very much. Hurry up and give me a bit more of your life force. This is the right thing to do. Your big brother 2 is greedy. A few 100 cubic meters will do. You don't look very good, but you're dreaming. A purple gold gourd rushed out with a whoosh. You deceive children every day and steal their snacks. How can you be so shameless? I really despise you. You've lived for so long, but you've degenerated to this extent. What do you know? How can the 2 of them finish using those things? Can't you see that they're already familiar with each other? What's the point of eating those things? If a child drinks milk when he's 3 years old, will he still drink milk when he's 30 years old? Why don't you say that you're already millions of years old, but you still want to trick children into drinking milk? How can you open your mouth like that? Old bastard. I'm just helping. For a moment, the three gourds and Grandpa too were arguing. At this moment, a rumbling sound came from outside. It was easy to tell from the sound that someone was fighting. Oh, Mommy's coming in. Bai and Gio rushed out in joy. At the side, Xiao instantly transformed from a teenager into a three-legged golden crow. He was still at a loss, and his two round eyes were full of embarrassment. He stood back and forth on his three legs, vividly displaying his uneasiness. She seemed to be a little embarrassed. Grandpa too and the Wahuang sword were very interested when they saw this. Seventh young master, have you recovered your memories? The Wahuang sword whistled gloatingly. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Aya, Grandpa too said sarcastically. The seventh prince of the demon emperor is going to forget his new mother's saving grace, raising grace, nurturing grace, and nurturing grace. The moment he spoke, he was an old yin-yang, as expected of a noble descendant, as expected of the demon emperor's bloodline, as expected of the three-legged golden crow. TSK, TSK, TSK. You don't even need to practice to turn your back on others. You're self-taught, and you can use it freely. You're at the peak of perfection, and you can do whatever you want. I really hate that I couldn't be born in a royal family, so that I could have such mental fortitude. Chapter 1382. Bullshit. Xiao growled, who said I was ungrateful. How could I betray? Betray. He had regained his memory. Although he was still the same, he could no longer call her mama. If Xiaoduo was a girl, it would be fine. But he was the seventh prince of the demon emperor. How could he call a boy mama for so many years that this kind of shame could not be described with the word bursting? It was so shameful that he could not show his face. It was indescribable. Oh my God, why don't you just let me die? How could I still have the face to see others? Boom, boom, boom. Zhui Xiaoyan showed her amazing strength. She was evenly matched with Wu Yuding. She was not at a disadvantage at all. He had met his match, and the general had met his match. Zhu Zhonglu and the Floodgrate, which were watching from the side, and they were exulting in joy. Wu Yuding was so angry that she was about to die. He had come in to teach his daughter and son a lesson. Originally, he had wanted to beat up the two of them, who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth until they didn't know where they were. She wanted them to know that not only was their master forever, but their mother would also be their mother forever. She wanted to dispel the unrealistic and naive idea of these two little things going on such a dangerous mission. But when she came in and started fighting, she found that her daughter was tied with her even before her son made a move. Zhuo Chonglu, that damn guy, was still laughing over there. Why are you laughing? Wu Yuding was ruthless and brought out her true abilities. Her sword Qi caused the wind and clouds to surge. Zhuo Xiaoyan was under pressure and could only summon Xiao duo to assist in the battle. Once again, the battle with Wu Yuding was spectacular. The more they fought, the fiercer they became. They fought for more than 2,000 moves. Zhui Xiaoyan was finally defeated. Then, she panted and said innocently, "Mom, can I go with you?" Wu Yuding was speechless for a long time. She didn't feel like a victor at all. She only felt like an old hen that had been defeated. And he was defeated by the little hen. In total, they had exchanged more than 2,300 moves. How long had it been? How did this girl improve so quickly? Not to mention the left and right heavenly kings, his strength might even surpass that old man, the star-plucking monarch. Now, it seems a bit unreasonable to say that you're too weak to go. How infuriating. So Xiao Duo, who was watching from the side, was secretly delighted and inexplicably proud. "Dad, Mom, what do you think of the way I've raised my wife?" As the person who knew Zhui Xiaoyan the best, Zhui Xiaoduo knew very well that Zhui Xiaoyan hadn't shown her full strength yet. She hadn't even used her ice flame yet. Not to mention that the prime of Tong Tian had given him some defensive treasures that he hadn't used yet. Even if Wu Yuding didn't have the ability to fight with her full strength, after the two of them canceled each other out, they were probably evenly matched. In other words, Xiaoyan now had the strength of Wu Yuding, the flood which couldn't stop praising. Little Nyenner's progress is really amazing. This strength is enough to show disdain for the heroes. Wu Yuding said angrily, Xiao Duo, go and teach your godfather a lesson. Okay. Xiao Duo answered and went out valiantly. He waved his hammers and said, Godfather, don't just praise my wife. Let me tell you, I'm very powerful now. The great witch of the flood glanced at Zhou Mo with disdain and curled his lips. Then he calmly took out his 1,000 souls nightmare hammer and said with a fake smile, Then let me see the ability of young Master Zhou. Young Master Zhou, since you're so powerful, don't beg for mercy later. Why, of course. I'm invincible. Wu Yuding retreated. Zhou Chonglu secretly transmitted his voice. How is it? Nyenner didn't use her full strength, and her defense is beyond imagination. Wu Yuding said seriously, Even if I use all my strength, I may not be able to break it. Zhou Chonglu looked relieved and said softly, The little girl has finally grown up. Good, very good. Wu Yuding immediately felt as if she had suffered an internal injury. Your wife didn't manage to get your daughter-in-law, and you're actually this happy? You heartless old man. Zhou Chonglu. That's not what I meant. Besides, this girl is not your daughter who was raised and spoiled by you. What does it have to do with me? Why? Is this stomach full of unhappiness directed at me? In the sky, Zhou Xiaoduo and the flood which just fought, and the sky was full of thunder. The vibration of the 4 hammers colliding in the sky was beyond human strength. Especially, the 4 hammers were not afraid of being damaged. They could be hit at will, and hit with purpose. This made people a little speechless. For a moment, the sparks from the collision of hammers in the sky were comparable to lightning, splitting the sky. Flood has used at least 70% of his real strength. Now it's almost 80%. Zhou Chonglu's mouth twitched. He's already like this, but he's still suppressed by Xiao Duo. My son suppressed the world's top master. He's my son. Wu Yuding beamed with joy. Zhou Chonglu sighed. If your daughter and Flood tied, it's your daughter-in-law bullying you. If your son suppressed Flood, it's your son's ability. My dear wife, your double standards are truly high standards. The Flood witch, who was in the middle of the battle, couldn't help but feel embarrassed. He had never thought that he would be suppressed by this kid after using 80% of his strength. This was simply too embarrassing. What was worse was that the people watching the battle were Zhou Chonglu and his wife. What the fuck? The Flood Witch, do you think I'm shameless? 90%. Using 90% of his battle strength, he instantly pushed Zhou Xiaoduo back. Zhou Xiaoduo was not convinced. He summoned Bai and Jiao, who rushed out and entered the hammer's head. Suddenly, white light and black gas surrounded the hammer. Rumbled with the help of the artifact's spirit, he immediately suppressed the Flood Great Witch again. Flood roared, and 3 doppelgangers appeared. Each of them was holding 2 hammers. They surrounded Zhou Xiaoduo and started to beat him up. Zhou Xiaoduo roared. Unwilling to be outdone, he used 120% of his strength and resisted stubbornly. It was rare to have a fight with his godfather, and it was so satisfying. Moreover, it was related to whether he should participate in the battle or not. Zhou Xiaoduo naturally used all his strength. Yes, there were other boosts. All of them were used together. Full power, full power. However, the Flood Witch, who felt that she had used 100% of her strength, suddenly felt a lot of pressure. How did this kid's foundation suddenly increase so much? How long has it been? No, if this goes on, I will be suppressed again. No, absolutely not. Thinking of this, the Great Witch of the Flood couldn't help but unleash his cultivation to the limit and counterattack with 120% of his cultivation. At this moment, the 2 of them had turned into 2 indomitable giants. 4 giant hammers, which were almost half the size of a city, smashed against each other. The Huahuang sword stood on the top of the mountain and watched the battle. The Taiji diagram leisurely moved the sofa out and opened the entire diagram. He slumped on the sofa and watched the battle while recording. Yes, ordinary battles naturally wouldn't enter Grandpa Diagram's eyes. However, Flood and Xiaoduo's actual strength and power had reached the sage-to-be level. Moreover, it was rare for hammers to fight against hammers. Therefore, it was qualified to be recorded by the Taiji diagram. Xiao was still in the form of the three-legged golden crow. He stared at the sky and thought, Mama's strength is so terrifying. Having such a mama doesn't seem to be a shameful thing. Yes, in the ancient times, strength was the most important thing. The one who reached the sage-to-be level was the reason. You can't just recognize mama as your mama. That's your chance. That's your fate. That's your chance. Suddenly, he felt proud. Yin Shihua turned into a stream of black gas and flew around to watch the battle. At the same time, he was waiting for an opportunity to absorb the remaining momentum and power of the battle. Xiao Long sneakily popped out an illusory dragon head from the top of the mountain. He looked at the sky and inexplicably missed the days when fate points poured down like a rainstorm that after a very long time. The two of them had already exchanged 6,000 moves, no more and no less. After another head-on clash, Xiaoduo's bones seemed to have turned soft as he fell from the sky. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I can't. I really can't. The flood which stopped her hammer on Xiaoduo's forehead. Young Master Zhua, if you're a man, you can't say that you can't. How can your endurance be so weak at such a young age? Come on, let's continue for another 300 rounds. Father, please spare my life. Humph. His butt was kicked hard, and he fell quickly into Zhua Xiaoyan's arms, who had been waiting for him with open arms. He took the opportunity to bite her. Ouch. Do you want to die? Zhua Xiaoyan threw him to the ground grumpily. Father fucked me so hard. My butt is rotten. Please comfort me. Kiss me, hug me, raise me high. Zhua Changlu ignored his son who had fallen to the ground. He just smiled and looked at the flood witch. Brother Hong, how was it? Very good. The flood witch looked refreshed. It was much better than fighting you. My son is stronger than you, his father. It's just a matter of time. Zhua Changlu was speechless. Fuck, was the flood possessed by Yuding? Why was the double standard tone so catchy? I'm not exaggerating. What he lacks now is experience and more accumulation. Basically, his battle prowess is only below the two of us. Only you and me. The implication was that his son was already stronger than his wife. Wu Yuding felt uncomfortable listening to him and rolled her eyes one after another. This big guy was too bad with words. Would it kill him to say his combat power is only below you and me? I don't believe that when I teach Xiao Duo a lesson, he won't dare to resist. How dare he? Humph, only you and me. Only you and me. I'll remember this. I'll get even with you sooner or later. The flood, which was really overwhelmed by the big surprise at this time. She was so surprised that she didn't care about Wu Yuding's feelings. Besides, she was a straightforward person. Even if she had concerns, she would still say so. You're not as good as our son. Can't you tell the truth? Therefore, what Wu Yuding once said about the flood, which was indeed very reasonable. There's a reason why you were single all your life. Flood was in a good mood. The younger generation had finally grown up. The heavens have eyes. The heavens bless the Wu people. Yes, so Xiao Duo is my son. Of course, he is a part of the Wu people. Yes, the flood which said with certainty. Xiao Duo and Yin'er are not only strong, but also have the more advanced annihilation tower. They are more useful than Raging Fire Wind Emperor and the others. Zhua Changlu smiled. Then it settled. Our family will move together. Everyone will participate in this mission. The three nodded at the same time. Wu Yuding's face flashed with a touch of worry. Her child had grown up and was able to share the limelight with her. She was able to stand on her own. She was happy, proud, and happy. She wanted to announce to the world that her son and daughter were so powerful now. They had no one in their eyes. But when she thought of going on a dangerous mission together, she still thought that her children were still young. They were still drinking milk and needed protection. She couldn't go. A mother's heart was always so complicated, delicate, and contradictory. Everything was settled. Ever since the ancestral land was lit up again, the world seemed to be in a roaring atmosphere every day. The battles between the strong would erupt every once in a while. Even though the distance was far, the spiritual energy between the heavens and the earth would still make ordinary people feel uncomfortable and uncomfortable. Countless people swore that they must cultivate and become strong in order to survive. But when they got used to this kind of vibration and didn't feel uncomfortable, they went to work, stayed up late, and played. Cough. It was still to survive. Since they got used to it, it was no longer a problem. Between the heavens and the earth, not only were the battles between the strong, but also the battles between the various races. It seemed much more intense than before. This was the right thing to do. After all, the clear heavenly tribulation was destined. The war between the various races was a foregone conclusion. The various races would fight each other sooner or later. Since that was the case, it was better to start the war early and finish it early. Although the Umno Alliance and the Astral Souls hadn't affected them yet, the old land of the Tao League mainland had been completely turned into a battlefield. This area had the least living creatures and was the most sparsely populated. It was the battlefield. After all, no one wanted their home to become the main battlefield of this war between the various races. It was easy to be devastated. Taoist Thunder and the other forces that originally belonged to the Tao League had returned to fight under Guang Qingzi's command. It was said that the ancestors of the Tao League were very dissatisfied. Why is it that after so many years, you're only at this level? You've clearly taken over the vast expanse of the Tao Alliance's continent and all of its resources, but you're still so weak? In fact, you were nearly wiped out by those puny demons. Can't you be any more disappointing? Taoist Thunder and the others were speechless in the face of such accusations. Why is it that we're only at this level? After so many years, what have you, the higher-ups, left for us? So what if you can't defeat the devil race? In the beginning of the war, the devil ancestor directly attacked. If you're so capable, do you dare to fight the devil ancestor head-on? But who dared to say that? After the flood which returned, he immediately began to plan to go to the demon imperial palace. This trip was fully supported by Zhuo Zhonglu and his family. All of them went out, which was far beyond his expectations. It was hard to imagine how much help it would bring to this trip. With such a lineup, the chances of the flood, which rescuing the ancestral sorcerers of the Wu tribe, increased sharply. In the following days, while waiting for the flood to act, Zhuo Chonglu and Wu Yuding continued to train Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan in the space of the Tower of Emptiness. Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan's cultivation strength was undoubtedly strong, but their cultivation progress was too fast. Even if their foundation was solid and their spiritual source was unusually strong, they still needed a lot of real battles to strengthen their foundation. Zhuo Chonglu and his wife were the most suitable candidates at this stage. Although there was not much time between waiting for the right opportunity, the Tower of Emptiness's speed lapse function was too powerful. The couple naturally had a lot of time to strengthen their foundation. After all, one day in the outside world was equivalent to several years in the Tower of Emptiness. It was too easy for them. And as time went on, the Tower of Emptiness seemed to be more and more complete and awesome. The way of the sky of the Tower of Emptiness gradually showed the embryonic form of the rules. The progress made every day was very surprising. Zhuo Xiaoduo was also shocked. He asked himself, during this period of time, he did not put more high-quality heavenly treasures of heaven and earth in it. How could it suddenly become awesome? Until one day, Zhuo Xiaoduo entered his villa room like a dead dog. He inexplicably found out fuck. When did this painting appear on the wall? No, this was a painting. Inside, there was a white fish and a black fish. They swam happily between the heavens and the earth. Oh, Zhuo Xiaoduo slapped his thigh. There must be something wrong with this painting. The Huahuang sword was crying at the top of the mountain. I was almost bullied to death by him for many years. You actually only found out that there was something wrong with him now. You're really competent as the master of this space. This painting is not bad. Look at how lively these two fish are, as if they are alive. Zhuo Xiaoduo went over to study it. I wonder if these two fish can be plucked out? It seems to be quite compatible with Bai and Jiao. Will it be more helpful to give it to them? Master picture. You can't pluck it out. I'm only staying temporarily. I will leave in the future. But Duo began to study it. I have a feeling that this is the one who played tricks on me on the way. His fingers moved around, and he really began to try to pluck it out. But he really could not pluck it out. Duo flipped his hand and took out the civet cat sword. I don't believe that as the master of this realm, I can't deal with a lousy painting. He could sense that the changes in space were inextricably linked to this map. However, the picture ignored him. Duo was angry. Now that it is in my hands, why are you ignoring me? Masters will want to see how tough you are. He was about to slash it with his sword. Master 2 could not help it. Stop. His voice was crisp and delicate. The Huang's sword was stunned. Crisp? Delicate? Master 2, you are so big and burly. Duo was stunned. You can talk. A puff of smoke rose from the picture, and a 7 or 8-year-old little girl with delicate makeup stood obediently in front of Duo. Don't cut me with your sword. It'll hurt. Ooh. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she looked indescribably pitiful. Wretch. The Huang's sword, who was waiting on the mountain peak outside to watch the show, directly vomited. Master 2, can't you have a little bit of integrity? You can even transform into a little boy, not to mention the masculine image with a full beard that you usually portray. But now you're transforming into a little girl. Where's your integrity? Where's your shame? You are still crying. Watch me punch you one by one. Little did they know that the Tai Chi diagram was the most mysterious object in the world. It did not have a gender. If it wanted to be a boy, it would be a boy. If it wanted to be a girl, it would be a girl. Compared to other people, he really saw through Duo. It was easy to communicate with him, with such an obedient, cute, clean, and pitiful little girl and his purpose was only this. You are this painting? Duo's eyes almost popped out. Yes. Master 2 nodded pitifully. You are a little girl? Yes. Wretch. Wretch. There were several sounds of vomiting outside. He did not know what it was that he had eaten too much. Duo was skeptical. Then when you're on the road, I was ordered to do so. The little lowly's tender voice said, it was my original master's order to use this method to give you benefits. I was only following orders. It wasn't my original intention. Yes, it is indeed a benefit. Duo rubbed his chin as he couldn't figure it out. He vaguely felt that something was wrong, but he could not tell what was wrong. The benefits are just this little. Duo was a little dissatisfied. You trapped me for so long with great fanfare, and you only gave me this little compensation? There's also a gourd of pills. But Master said that you can't take it until you are half saint. Otherwise, there will be side effects. Combat power is not the same as cultivation. If you don't have enough cultivation, there are hundreds of disadvantages to using external items to increase your cultivation too early. The little girl said timidly. She was really as obedient as she could be. Oh, even though Duo's combat strength was almost on par with the Flood Shaman, his cultivation was at the bottom. At the very most, he was only at the peak of the Golden Immortal Realm. He was truly unable to attain the Half-Saint Realm. The Flood Witch's peak combat power was one thing, but really going all out was another. It was impossible for her to go all out with her son. What pills are so powerful? Duo was a little itchy. How many pills are there in total? There are a total of 10 furnaces. How many pills are there in 10 furnaces? 9 pills in 1 furnace. So many? I'm afraid the quality is limited. My master is the best in alchemy in the world. The quality of his pills are the best. Duo felt that this little girl was too honest. She answered whatever he asked. How could she be so obedient? So cute. Looking at her, one punch would make her cry for 3 days, right? Then, he calculated in his heart. 10 furnaces. 9 pills in 1 furnace. How many was that? 90 pills. And the quality of the pills was the best. He was so rich that he could rival a country, right? After calculating for a moment, he said, can you give me 3 pills first so that I can appreciate these so-called top-grade pills? They are with the gourd. Master 2 was aggrieved and timid. The gourd doesn't listen to me. By the way, my master's pills can't be described as the best. They should be heaven grade or divine grade. Ugh, A purple gourd suddenly appeared on the sofa. Then, the purple gourd immediately turned into a cute boy. However, the boy was vomiting, retching. His face was full of disgust. He was probably disgusted by Master Tuesday. He was so disgusted that he could not help but vomit. I have never been so disgusted in my life. Chapter 1383. No matter how much they vomited, felt disgusted, disdained, or ridiculed, everyone could not help but admire Master Two's accurate grasp of the human heart. He had never been at a disadvantage. Now that he was up against Xiao Duo, Grandpa Two had thoroughly researched how to not be at a disadvantage. He had no intentions of scheming against Xiao Duo. The little girl looked pitiful, timid, beautiful, cute, and had a pair of big clear eyes. It was as if her eyes would be filled with tears if she stared. Who could bear to reprimand her? They could not even bear to put on a stern face. She was the kind of girl who would cry in fright and not be appeased for a long time. As was Xiao Duo, who had been thoroughly tricked, obviously could not use force against the little girl. He could not even use his usual cheap tricks. Yes, his invincible skills were instantly restricted. Thus, he scratched his head and turned to ask the purple gold gourd, "Where are the pills?" The little boy held his head high. "Yes, all of them are with me." "Then give me 3 pills first? Is that okay? Are 3 enough?" The little boy asked cutely. Xiao Duo was overjoyed. "Can we discuss this? Why don't you give me more?" "Here, I'll give you 1 portion first. 9 pills." The little boy opened his mouth and spat out a sparkling purple jade bottle. It was filled with 9 pills that were filled with colorful lights. He reminded, "I can give them to you. However, before you reach the Zenith Heavenly Realm, try not to consume these pills if you can. It will hinder your future cultivation." So Xiao Duo was stunned and said, "Isn't a half-sage? A half-sage would use it to break through to the boundary sage realm. A Zenith Heavenly Realm cultivator would use it to increase their cultivation at the fastest speed. However, after consuming it, they would need a considerable amount of time to adapt to the rapid growth of their power. In terms of the best effect, the early-stage Zenith Heavenly Realm cultivator would have the fastest growth after consuming it. However, there would be a considerable risk." "What risk?" Xiao Duo asked. The purple gold gourd pondered for a while. The little boy opened his mouth and stretched out his arms. Boom! Then, he made a gesture of exploding fireworks. His eyes were sparkling and full of joy. However, Xiao Duo did not feel happy at all. Instead, he was speechless. She scolded Bai and Jio. "Can't you teach them something better?" Xiao Duo was sure that the purple gold gourd was a connate life form. Didn't know what boom meant. So, Bai and Jio must have taught him to do that. Bai turned into a little girl, while Jio turned into a little boy. Both of them had their heads drooped as their toes rubbed against the ground. Xiao Duo then turned to the purple gold gourd. He rubbed his hands and revealed a wolfish smile. "Hey you, what's your name again?" "Little Gold." Xiao Jin looked at him vigilantly, as if he was about to retreat at the slightest provocation and leave immediately. Xiao Duo rubbed his hands. "Since grand heavenly immortals can consume it, then, this portion is a little too little. It's not enough. Then how much do you want?" "You see, 3 portions." Xiao Duo looked into Xiao Jin's eyes. He had only asked for 3 portions, but this little guy didn't even bat an eyelid. He changed his mind at the last minute. "I want 5 portions." "No problem." Xiao Jin was unusually forthright and generous. He didn't hesitate at all. "Anyway, I'm saving it for you. You can have as much as you want. What's the harm in giving it all to you?" "I'm not giving it to you voluntarily because Master has instructed me to tell you the pros and cons of consuming it at each stage. You can ask for it yourself. I've already told you the pros and cons. What happens after that is none of my business." He didn't expect Xiao Jin to agree so readily. Xiao Duo was stunned. He suddenly regretted it was too little. It was definitely too little. He couldn't change his mind now. He didn't know when he could ask for it again. Looking at the row of purple jade bottles in front of him, Xiao Duo, who still didn't understand the situation, fell into deep regret. He regretted that he didn't ask for more bottles just now, but now he could ask for 5 bottles. There were 45 pills in total. It was enough for him. At least for the human race, it was enough for Zhuo Chonglu and the others. Even if Li Chenglong and the others were included, it would still be enough. He just didn't know what level of cultivation these guys were at now. So Xiao Duo distributed a few pills on the spot. 1 for Bai, 1 for Jiao, 1 for Yin Shishir, 1 for the 3-legged golden crow, 1 for himself, and 1 for Zhuo Xiaoyan. The others didn't feel anything when they received the pills. After all, this was a basic operation and a basic ration. It was normal. However, Xiao couldn't help but feel uneasy. Holding the 9 transformation golden pill in hand, he hesitated in front of Zhuo Xiaoduo for a long time. He was still hesitant and didn't move forward. Zhuo Xiaoduo frowned and looked at Xiao with some scrutiny. Xiao seemed to have difficulty opening his mouth. I've recovered. Oh. Zhuo Xiaoduo's face suddenly showed a playful expression. Recovered? His Majesty the Demon Kings. 7th Prince? Prince Yaqiong? All your memories have come back? Zhao's eyes flashed with an extremely complicated expression. Actually, I would rather not have recovered. Xiao sighed. Suddenly, he turned into an 18 or 19-year-old boy with red lips and white teeth. He was handsome and confident. In terms of appearance, he was only slightly inferior to Zhuo Xiaoduo himself. He said with a bitter smile, I'm afraid you won't be happy if I talk to you in the form of the Golden Crow. Zhuo Xiaoyan was a little worried. Xiao, we've been together for a long time. It's fate. Don't worry too much. Now that you can recover and pick up the past, we're all happy for you. Xiao nodded hard. Thank you. Thank you. Zhuo Xiaoduo frowned and said slowly, Xiao, since you've recovered, it's not appropriate for you to stay in the Tower of Annihilation any longer. In a few days, when we go to the Demon Palace, we'll take you with us. Xiao suddenly raised his head and said anxiously, Mama, you don't want me anymore? As soon as he said Mama, he came back to his senses and suddenly blushed. But he didn't care about his shyness. He just looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo anxiously and nervously. Zhuo Xiaoduo took a breath and said, Since you've recovered and picked up the past, it's only right that you return to your biological parents. Now that the ancestral land has been restored and the heavenly tribulation has begun, the confrontation between the clans is a foregone conclusion. Everyone's positions are different. Your father and mother are there, your brothers and sisters, and your former subordinates are there. There, you have supreme power and boundless prestige. You could do whatever you want. What's the point of staying with me? What's the point? In life, fate begins and ends. Perhaps the fate between us should come to an end as you pick up the past. Xiao said painfully, It's not that I don't want to go back, but I don't want to go back. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Suddenly, he said loudly, That's my home. Isn't this place my home too? Of course I don't want to leave my father and mother, but I don't want to leave you guys either. What are you shouting for? So Xiaoduo put on the airs of an old father and scolded. No one said that this is not your home. Young man, can you not be so sensitive? Just tell me what's on your mind. I'm looking forward to going back and seeing my father and mother again, but I don't want to go back. I don't want to lose. You, Xiao said slowly. Just as you said, I have everything in that home. My father is very good, Uncle Dongwang is very good, and my mother is even better. But I'm very tired in that home, really tired. I don't dare to say anything, no matter how sad I am, no matter what's on my mind. I don't even dare to say anything when I'm injured. After all, my father has 10 princes. I'm not the only one. The other royal brothers all have countless ideas, Yi Zichen said, and all of them are very outstanding. The 10 sons of the Golden Crow are all talents. I don't want to leave my father and mother, but if I have a choice, I don't want to live such a tiring life anymore. I don't want to fight with them to the death. That position is not as beautiful as I thought, but everyone has no choice in their birth. I'm a prince. Even if I don't fight, even if I'm a fool, as long as I'm alive, there's hope and there's a threat. Xiao said painfully, the last time I was plotted against and died, it was. Speaking up to this point, he suddenly stopped talking. He smiled bitterly and continued. Here, I don't care about the past. I'm just a 3-legged golden crow, but I don't have to think about anything. I don't have to think about anything. I live happily, simply, freely, and freely. Even though my memory hasn't recovered, and I've done a lot of stupid things. This. Although he said these words very frankly, Zhao's handsome face was still full of blush, and he couldn't help but feel ashamed. There was no other reason. It was really too shameful. He remembered that when he was still a three-legged golden crow, he was often burned naked. He fought with people, pecked people's crotches, set fire to people's crotches, burned people's crotches, and burned people's but not once. When Zhuo was taking a bath, a little crow flew over and lay on Zhuo's body, curiously shouting, "Mama, there's a big worm under you." Then it stretched out its little sharp beak and pecked curiously down on the spot. Zhuo jumped 10 feet high, screaming and chasing after him. Whenever he thought of these things, Zhao even had the thought of what was the point of living. He should have died many times in a large society. He was really too ashamed to show his face. What's more, it seemed that many times he died in a society were recorded. Every time he thought of this, he felt more and more hopeless. Now, even Bai Jiao Wulong's sword and others had learned how to play with mobile phones. Thinking of this, Xiao looked at the Huang's sword sadly. "Sword Elder, oh Sword Elder, why didn't you protect me? If you really don't want to go back, then don't go back." So Xiao patted him on the shoulder and said, "Why are you so emotional? If you continue to be emotional, I can't delete those videos for you." Zhuo Xiaoyan was curious and interrupted, "What big worm?" Chapter 1384. Zhao's fair face turned red and begged, "Please delete them all. I beg you. What's the point of deleting them?" So Xiao rolled his eyes and said, "Those videos are in each of their phones, including your grandparents and dad. Everyone has a copy. Can you delete them all?" Xiao wailed and squatted on the ground, covering his face. He was too ashamed to face anyone. "Oh my God, let me die. Forget it. It seems like I can only stay in the tower for the rest of my life," Xiao said in despair. The seventh prince of the Demon King. Pecked little Gigi.I. "I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to live anymore. Unfortunately, you can't escape even if you stay here forever." Zhuo Xiaoyan reminded him worriedly, "Your grandparents are not outsiders. They can come in at any time. When that time comes." Xiao, who had been hit hard, immediately shut herself up. He looked around blankly, covering his face and curling into a ball. His face was full of despair. Master Tu, who still looked like a little girl, and Xiao Jin, the purple golden gourd, walked over and asked curiously, "What video? Is it fun? Let us watch it too." "Don't watch it." Xiao let out a thunderous roar. She jumped up and transformed into a three-legged golden crow. Her fur stood on end. He shouted crazily in the air, "No one is allowed to watch it. No one is allowed to watch it." Bai and Jiao were sneakily taking out their phones when Xiao swooped down and started a fight. Don't watch it." Zhuo Xiaoduo sighed, "This is so pitiful. Let's get out of here." After they left the tower, Zhuo Xiaoyan asked worriedly, "Is Xiao all right?" "He's definitely fine," Zhuo Xiaoduo said confidently. "He's just embarrassed for a while. What can happen? Otherwise, they won't have any fun in their long lives. I'm doing this for their own good." Zhuo Xiaoyan rolled her eyes. "Does that mean that Xiao has to thank you for your kindness? Is that what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the demon race. Do you think the Demon Emperor and Demon Empress are such easygoing people?" Zhuo Xiao's face darkened, and he sighed. It was common knowledge. Sooner or later, there would be a war between humans and demons. Now that the heavenly tribulation had begun, they were fighting for the right to survive. When the time came, it was easy to imagine how tragic the battle would be. As for Zhao's identity and position, try to think of a way to get the best of both worlds. Try your best. So Xiaoduo did not want to talk about this matter because he was full of melancholy. How could he not know that there would be a dilemma in the future? However, he did not know what to do when the time came. There's always a way out. Let's take it one step at a time. If only there wasn't a war. Xiao has a home on both sides. Perhaps she would be the happiest among the demon race's 10 great princes. Zhuo Xiaoyan sighed. "Why don't we discuss this with Mom and Dad?" Zhuo Xiaoduo said. Zhuo Xiaoyan nodded. This was indeed an effective solution at the moment. At the same time, it was also a solution that was not a solution. The two of them left the Tower of Annihilation and found Zhuo Chonglu and his wife. They told their parents about Zhao's memory recovery. When Zhuo Chonglu and Wu Yuding heard this, they were also dumbfounded. What can I do if you ask me about this? What can I do? In such a difficult situation, we can't just do whatever we want. Instead of asking the two of us, why don't you ask the Demon Emperor Jun and Dongwang Tai directly? Wu Yuding rolled her eyes and said, how can the two of us make decisions for the demon race? That's true. I've helped them raise their son for so long. It's reasonable for them to give me something good to repay me. So Xiaoduo thought about it and looked fascinated. Repay you? You're dreaming. Wu Yuding chuckled. If they don't beat you up a few hundred times, I'll think that you're the luckiest person in the world. So Xiaoduo was melancholy. Life is full of helplessness. There are so many ungrateful people. Zhuo Chonglu and Wu Yuding were speechless. You can't blame them that you're just a junior, a child of the human race. Expecting the Demon Emperor and Demon Empress to address you as brother is an extravagant hope, an unrealistic, extravagant hope. As for expecting the Demon Emperor and Demon Empress to call us uncle and aunt, that's even more of a fantasy. The things that this kid does are always so. Wu Yuding looked up at the sky with a melancholy expression. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. How would I give birth to such a son? Sigh. Zhuo Chonglu naturally didn't doubt the elixirs that Zhuo Xiaoduo took out. However, after taking one, he couldn't help but be shocked. What elixir is this? Zhuo Zhonglu felt as if his cultivation had increased by leaps and bounds like a rocket. Zhuo Chonglu wasn't surprised that the elixir given by his son had an extraordinary effect. However, it would be strange if he wasn't shocked that it could increase his cultivation by so much in such a short time. It must be known that Zhuo Zhonglu's current cultivation level was almost at the limit of a human's ability. Every bit of progress after that would require an opportunity. It would require a long time of grinding. At least in his knowledge, it was very difficult to imagine what kind of medicinal pill could allow one to advance so much in one's cultivation after eating one. I don't know. Anyway, since there are no side effects, I'll take it. It's a waste not to take it. Zhuo Xiaoduo was very open-minded and didn't hide his ignorance at all. After he and Zhuo Xiaoyan ate the elixir, they fought hundreds of rounds in the space of the Tower of Annihilation. Both sides were exhausted hundreds of times. Yes, the fierce battle here was a real battle, the kind with real swords and spears. Those who had the wrong idea should face the wall and reflect on their mistakes. He was already used to the increase of the elixir's efficacy. Of course, there were times when Zhuo Xiaoduo would use other methods to exhaust himself after finishing his cultivation. This kind of battle wasn't the kind with real swords and spears. Those who had the wrong idea should also face the wall and reflect on their mistakes. Zhuo Xiaoduo kept the elixirs for Li Chenglong and the others in advance. Zhuo Xiaoduo really didn't keep any of the remaining elixirs. He gave all of them to Zhuo Chonglu and let the old man distribute them himself. He didn't have to worry about it. With the old man here, everything can be done. As a son, you don't have to worry too much. Zhuo Xiaoduo was half lying on the sofa, hugging his wife and crossing his legs. He looked relaxed and happy. Zhuo Xiaoyan felt the same. Yes, if there's anything, let Dad and Mom do it. We don't have to worry about anything. Our days are really too comfortable. It had to be said that Zhuo Xiaoduo's influence on Zhuo Xiaoyan was getting worse day by day. She was becoming more and more like a salted fish. With the resources in Zhuo Xiaoduo's hands, even if he used them to form a team and dominate the whole world, there was still a lot of surplus. He could easily cultivate a group of high-level men of sacrifice who were completely loyal to him. It was not difficult at all. But for Zhuo Xiaoduo, who was the kind of lazy guy who would never stand if he could sit or lie down if he could. He would never work hard if he could win by lying down. How could he have the slightest interest in that kind of thing? Zhuo Chonglu and Wu Yuding were deeply helpless. But so what? They had to take the elixirs given by their son and start to shake people up. With the Zhuo couple's wealth and influence, naturally, everyone was happy. They got a lot of IOUs. The specific process couldn't be described in detail, but it was generally, my son found a job for me. This kid is embarrassed. When people have children, it's like having a debt collector. I have to work for them every day. Sigh, isn't that right? Minister, just tell us what you want and we'll do it. Haha, it's not a bad thing. Strictly speaking, it's actually a good thing. What good thing? Let's hear it. The little brat got some elixirs. It's quite good. As long as one's cultivation is above the great heavenly level, one can immediately advance by one level after taking it. This kid is so shy that he's embarrassed to distribute such a good thing. He asked me, his father, to do it. He pushed such a small matter to me. Tell me, what can I count on him in the future? Boss, you're still sad about such a good thing. Can't you be more like Versailles? Boss, I despise you. Hurry up and take out the good stuff. Elixirs above the great heavenly level. My God, what kind of treasure is this? It's a dream item. Tisk TSK. Boss, you're so capable. You can train your son to be so awesome. It's really enviable. That's right. If I had such a son, I'd wake up laughing in my dreams. You still have the nerve to complain. What else do you want him to do? I'm already so old, and I'm running out to do favors for my son. Am I not pitiful? That brat just threw those things to me, and then he didn't care about anything else and ran out of play. I'm just a bag of old bones running here and there to do things for him. What I said just now was from the bottom of my heart. I really don't expect anything from that brat. Zhuo Changlu stroked his beard and looked at everyone with a smile. Tell me, am I pitiful? Tisk. Everyone collectively despised him. Boss, can you be any more despicable? He's just here to show off his son to us. But he's too good at showing off. We can't compare. That's right. If I had such a son, I'd show off every day too. I'd show off from day to night. The bunch of old men were happy. If there were benefits to be reaped, they wouldn't care about him showing off his son. From the beginning to the end, the left and right heavenly kings didn't say a word. The main thing was that they didn't dare to say anything. Everyone was calling him boss. If the two of them dared to say anything, they'd be beaten to a pulp. They couldn't do anything about it. The two of them had a motherly smile on their faces the entire time. Their flattery was endless. Junior brother is so awesome. Xiao Duo is so awesome. That's great. That's great. Uncle Zhuo is so lucky. Master is so lucky. You bunch of trash. You're so much worse than my master. You bunch of trash. How can you compare to my Uncle Zhuo? You'll be so greedy. You won't have such a son, even if you're greedy. Nan Zhengxian, Dongfang Xingyang, and the rest almost rebelled. They really wanted to beat you Don Tian and Yin Zhonghu up. These two bastards. It's fine if you flatter your uncle and master. But why do you have to step on us when you're flattering us? What a terrible temper. Originally, it was fine if it was just you Don Tian. We could just bear with it. But now, when did Yin Zhonghu become like this? Chapter 1385. However, on this day, the front line of the Astral Soul Snow Mountain was filled with jubilation. All the higher-ups had taken a step forward collectively. At night, they partied together. In the midst of the snowstorm, all kinds of good wine, good dishes, and delicious delicacies were served steaming hot. Everyone ate and drank to their heart's content. Otherwise, it would be difficult to express the joy in their hearts. At night, the wind howled in the sky. The higher-ups were fighting each other to adapt to the sudden increase in their cultivation. They fought in pairs. Those who won continued to drink and eat, while those who lost continued to fight in the sky. Those who lost in the end naturally got nothing. Starvation was their punishment. The fragrance below spread for thousands of miles, while the battle above was fierce. Tens of millions of soldiers looked up with bowls in their hands. Yu Don Tian had already won. He held a bowl of wine in one hand and an entire demon beast leg in the other. He shouted to the sky, "You guys can fight, but don't fight until you piss." Ha ha. 2 days later, Li Chenglong and the others returned with injuries, but full of energy. Other than Gao, Qiao Duganer, and Zhun Piao, who had yet to break through to the Zenith Heavenly Realm, the others were at least at the early stage Zenith Heavenly Realm. Li Chenglong was at the mid-stage Zenith Heavenly Realm. Everyone received a pill each with a new round of IOUs and broke through again. Yes, there were 3 more pills for Li Chenglong. He would give them to Zhen, Pia Piao, and the others after they broke through. After the astral soul's matter was settled, Zhuo Xiaoduo, Zhuo Xiaoyan, Zhuo Changlu, and Wu Yuding rode the wind and flew toward the Umno Alliance. Dad, should we give Godfather the pills? What do you think about this? Zhuo Changlu frowned. The matter that Zhuo Xiaoduo mentioned was also the matter that had troubled him the most recently. It was the matter that he was most conflicted about, and it was difficult for him to make a decision. Based on the alliance they had formed during this period of time, it should be given to them. Increasing their strength and increasing the overall strength of their allies was beneficial to them. I'm going to rescue Zhu Wu this time, not because I'm a villain, but because Zhu were all ancient masters. Once the rescue is successful, Zhu will all come out. Then, your godfather will no longer be in charge of the Umno Alliance in the future. The future path of the Wu people still depends on the Zhu Wu people's consideration and final decision. Zhuo Changlu sighed and said, so what I mean is that we can only give your godfather 1 pill. He's the only one who can be considered one of us. As for the others, let's wait for the Zhu Wu to make a decision. Zhuo Xiaoduo nodded silently. Zhuo Changlu's consideration was also his consideration. Rescuing Zhu Wu was a great benefit to the Umno Alliance, but it was not very optimistic for the Astral Souls. It was hard to be sure. The Astral Souls helped them rescue them, so the Alliance should be more powerful. However, people's hearts were always unpredictable. What if the Zhu Wu people wanted to dominate the world? Even if they thought in the most optimistic way, the Sorcerer Tribe and the Alliance of Star Souls would survive the heavenly tribulation and even obtain the final victory. Who would be in charge of the mainland then? As the supreme leader of the Astral Souls, Zhuo Changlu had to consider this carefully. After all, he was shouldering billions of lives and a future that would last for thousands of years. Thousands of mountains and rivers were crossed in an instant. Naturally, there were some twists and turns along the way. As they walked, there were battles ahead of them. However, with the strength of the 4 people, it was easy for them to cross them. There was nothing to worry about. Even the 2 sides who were in the middle of the battle were scared witless when they saw the arrival of these 4 experts. They took a deep breath and waited for the 4 experts to pass by. Then, they let out a sigh of relief and calmed down. The lineup of 2 Sage-to-Be and 2 half-saints was not something that an ordinary team could handle. Considering the strength of the Zhuo family in the entire ancestral land, except for the Demon King's family, no other family could be mentioned in the same breath as the Zhuo family. Even if they were not the most powerful family in the world, they were definitely the 2nd most powerful family in the world. The flood which was waiting on Mount Wushan. When she saw the family of 4, she could not help but smile and sigh in relief. Brother Zhuo, thank you. Godfather, Godfather, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan saluted and greeted them. It's only been a few days, but you 2 have improved so much. The flood which looked at them carefully and was as shocked as Zhuo Changlu. Humph. Zhuo Changlu rolled his eyes and said, I took in a godson for you. After that, you were displeased. How are you now? Wu Yuding said, even a great wizard can't escape the law of true fragrance, right? Flood said, did I ever object? How come I don't remember? You 2 don't talk nonsense. Old thing, shameless. While they were talking, Lai Hua, Dan Kong, and the others also came. For a moment, they were full of laughter and joy. They stayed in the Umno Alliance until the afternoon. Flood, Dan Kong, Lai Hua, Jin Lin, Feng Di, Du Wu, and the Zhuo family, a total of 10 people. After a greeting, they rushed into the sky. Zhuo Xiaoduo said that it would be perfect if they could gather 10 people. But they didn't know if this trip would be perfect. Everyone turned into wind and clouds and rushed toward the Monster Clan's continent. They were all as fast as lightning, and all traces of them were hidden. What they saw along the way made the 10 people sigh. If the Tao League was the focus of the various races' expeditions and was full of devastation, then most of the damage was from before the ancestral land was restored. Because of the fall of the ancestral land, It was ruthlessly ravaged by the demon clan. Even though the demon clan had retreated, the traces of devastation left behind were difficult to repair. Moreover, it was one of the main battlefields of the various races. One could imagine the heavy damage. Apart from the Dali continent, the Monster Clan's continent could be said to be the most damaged of all the continents that returned. After all, the Monster Clan was the strongest in the 9 continents. The Monster Clan's comprehensive strength was the strongest among all the races. If there was a choice, the races would first target the Monster Clan. As far as everyone's eyes could see, countless mountains and precipitous ridges had collapsed. There were tattered demon corpses everywhere that had not been cleaned up in time. It was a tragic sight. The Demon Clan was attacking the Monster Clan, and there was a loud battle. The Azura Clan was also attacking the Monster Clan, and there was a rain of blood everywhere. The Western Sect was also wandering around. When they saw demons with injuries and incomplete combat power but good talent, they would lend a helping hand and take them away. Buddha said that all living beings were equal, so how could there be differences? Demons could also become Buddhas. When they met the right ones, of course, they would take them away. This was just a matter of course. Countless people of the Monster Clan were inexplicably sorrowful. Their cries after losing their loved ones were no different from that of humans. The people suffer when they prosper, and the people suffer when they die. The joys and sorrows of the world are always the same. Zhuo Zhonglu sighed inwardly, his words expressing his feelings. The current Monster Clan's continent might be the future Monster Clan's continent of astral souls. Even the strongest Monster Clan had been beaten to such a state, let alone the weaker humans of astral souls. At the top of the mountain, a wounded Wolf King howled at the sky, his body covered in blood. The Wolf King was over 100 feet long. This dense forest was originally its territory. In the past, with a long howl, more than tens of millions of wolves would gather. But now, at this moment, there were only a few scattered wolf howls to support their king. After more than 10 minutes, less than 500 wolves had gathered. Most of them were injured and had incomplete combat power. Outside the mountain, there were many demon experts who were constantly pushing their way in. The Wolf King howled sadly at the sky, but he knew that he could not change the fate of the impending destruction. Zhuo and the others swept past. Behind them was the towering mountain peak, and the Wolf King, who was covered in blood and howling alone. Xiaoduo and Zhuo did not feel anything, and neither did Lai Huodan Kong and the others. The destruction of a small settlement of the Monster Clan was not enough to reach the apex. It was only right that they did not care. However, Zhuo Chonglu and the Flood Witch's eyes flashed with sadness at the same time. Today, the Monster Clan might not be the Ming dynasty of the Umno Alliance and the Astral Souls. Who knew if the Umno Alliance or the Astral Souls would be better than the Wolf King in the end? That if that day really came, would the one howling at the sky at the top of the mountain be me? No, it definitely would not be me. I should have died in battle long ago. Suddenly, there were 3 balls of flames in front of them. They rose into the sky, illuminating the sky and illuminating the world. It was 3 of the 10 crown princes. They arrived with great momentum, leading an army to reinforce this side. Zhuo Chonglu and Flood saw that the other party was coming menacingly. They were afraid that their whereabouts would be exposed, so they quickly led the crowd to a higher layer of clouds and avoided the path. The wolf pack was at the end of the road. For a little compassion, it was better not to block the reinforcements of the Monster Clan and give them a chance to live. At the right time, the wind and clouds were left behind. The crowd hurried on, and the Monster Peacock City was in front of them. The atmosphere here was very different from what they had seen before. The intertwining great monster consciousness was extremely dense. However, none of this caught the attention of these 10 people. They passed through them silently and arrived in the sky above the inner city in an instant. However, when they arrived near the inner city, the 10 people did not dare to be too rash. They chose to stop at a height of about 15,000 meters above the ground. This was a very safe height. If they descended a few thousand meters, they would be easily detected by the supermasters like the Monster Peacock Emperor. How's the original plan? Zhuo asked. It should be fine. The original plan. They would use the raging fire and the poison venom as the first wave to create chaos. Dan Kong, Wind Emperor, and Jin Lin would cooperate to further alert the enemy. They would maximize the attention of the high-level masters of the Monster Clan, providing an opportunity for the rest to sneak in. Zhuo Chonglu's family and the Flood, which would take advantage of the gap to break into the Fusong tree in the city. They would use their powerful cultivation to break the seal. According to the information that had been gathered, it was confirmed that there were a total of 3 seals under the Fusong tree. As long as these 3 seals were broken, the zoo would be able to escape by themselves. No matter how long the zoo would have been sealed, no matter how much strength they had lost, as long as the Zhu Wu escaped, they would definitely be able to break out of the encirclement and escape unscathed with their combined strength. In that case, the crux of the matter would be the 3 seals. Then the next question would be who would break the seal, Zhuo Chonglu's family or the Flood Witch. The Monster Clan will definitely fight back when they realize that the seal has been touched. The 3 of us will try our best to hold on for half an hour. Xiao Duo and Yin will go in and break the seal. They have a lot of trump cards. They will have a much higher chance of breaking the seal than us. After half an hour, no matter whether the seal is broken or not, whether the plan is successful or not, we must retreat immediately to protect ourselves. The Flood Witch said in a deep voice. Okay, it's decided. Half an hour. It was the most time that the Flood Witch, Father Zhuo, and Mother Zhuo could give them when they were restrained outside. The 5 great sorcerers had used all their strength and methods to destroy the Monster Clan without scruples. They believed that one of the 3 giants of the Monster Clan would have to send out a great sorcerer. After half an hour, the great sorcerers who were causing chaos outside would inevitably be suppressed. Once the Dongwang Demon Emperor and the Demon Empress gathered on the other side, the Flood Witch and the others would also be suppressed. After all, this was the base camp of the Monster Clan, the core area, where the elites of the Monster Clan gathered. To rescue the ancestral sorcerer in such a place, any kind of conspiracy or disguise would be useless and useless. The only way was to attack by force. Half an hour was already all the time that could be bought. It was the limit. After the plan was set, the great sorcerer nodded and waved his hand. Then, like a meteor, he fell directly from the sky. Duwu followed him at the same time, one on the left and one on the right. Wind Emperor Dan Kong followed closely behind and landed on the ground as well. The great fire shaman was like a meteorite, smashing down desperately. He even added his fastest movement speed to the momentum of his fall. At the same time, his strongest spiritual power burst out, and a sharp and shrill sound burst out in the air. The great sorcerer turned into a meteor and rushed directly to the protective shield of the Monster Peacock City. Boom! The whole Monster Peacock City was shocked by this sudden impact. It was no longer stable and shook violently. Boom! Boom! Boomed at a corner of the Monster Peacock City was suddenly engulfed in flames, and everything was red. On the other side, Du Wu's poisonous fog swept over like a hurricane that immediately people and horses were thrown off their feet, and no one was alive. Screams shook the sky. Wind Emperor Jin Lin and Dan Kong. 2 followed Du Wu, and 1 followed the great sorcerer. Each of them activated their own special attributes and started a massacre. Countless buildings collapsed, and smoke and dust filled the sky. It was an unprecedented mess. Enemy attack. With a sharp roar, countless flying demons covered the entire sky. The fastest ones were a group of black eagles. The eagles spread their wings like clouds in the sky and instantly blocked everyone's line of sight towards the Monster Peacock City. Then, starlight flickered and many Monster Clan monster gods rushed out of the sky. Which scoundrel dares to be so rash? Zhuo Chonglu's family and the Flood, which were already below the clouds, calmly watching the chaos in the Monster Peacock City. Although there was chaos, the Monster Clan army coming from all directions was not chaotic. Instead, they started to encircle and suppress in an orderly manner. Another roar sounded. Imperial City Army, heavenly cycle constellations, listen to my command. The Flood Witch's expression changed. Kuan-Pung. Why is Kuan-Pung here? Isn't he overseeing the west of the Monster Clan continent? Why is he here? This is not good. The Flood Witch's expression changed again and again and became extremely ugly. Kuan-Pung should be overseeing the Thunder Eagle City now. This news was absolutely true. They had confirmed it several times, and it could not be wrong. In fact, this plan was set up based on this. Now that he suddenly appeared here, the Monster Clan's peak combat power suddenly increased from 3 to 4. This was not only unexpected, but also a devastating blow to the plan. Lai Hua and the rest have already made their move. The arrow has already been knocked, so let's fight. Since we're here, we have to give it a try. As long as Xiao Duo and Yin can break the seal, as long as Zhu Wu can escape, the plan can still be carried out. Zhou Changlu waved his hand and gave his decision. The Flood Witch cannot say this. If the plan succeeded, it would naturally be beneficial to the Umno Alliance. But for the Astral Souls, it would only be a relative benefit, but not an absolute benefit. Now that the situation had changed, the risk that Zhou Changlu and his wife would have to pay if they continued to attack would multiply. It was reasonable for them to stop the plan and withdraw. However, Zhou Changlu and his wife were still willing to take the risk and choose to continue attacking. This huge favor must be received by the Umno Alliance and engraved in their hearts. Zhou Xiaoduo and Zhou Xiaoyan did not say anything. They turned into two shadows, one white and one black, and rushed down. In one breath, they rushed to the back of the monster palace, where the Fusang Divine Tree seemed to be burning all the time. Suddenly, the Fusang Divine Tree shone brightly, as if countless suns had suddenly risen. It was an automatic attack from the Fusang Divine Tree. As an innate spiritual object, although the Fusang Divine Tree was only a tree, its combat power was limited. Ren Jing screamed, only to feel that his face seemed to be frozen stiff. Frozen? What the hell? After the angry roar, he hurriedly turned into a three-legged golden crow and flew up, and a large amount of Grand Sun primordial fire surged and burned in his body, and he felt a trace of warmth. Unfortunately, all his movements were predicted by Zhou Xiaoduo and Zhou Xiaoyan. At this moment, the two of them were standing under the Fusang Divine Tree. According to the Flood's teaching, they used the power of soft water and stomped on the steel-like ground with their feet. Instantly, dense ripples appeared on the ground, and one of the ripples was swaying endlessly, which was particularly conspicuous. Obviously, it was constantly attacked and sealed, and at this moment, it was a two-way influence caused by the convergence of the internal and external forces. It's here. So a Xiaoduo flew over and was ready to attack. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Millions of ice flowers fell like a snowstorm. Zhou Xiaoyan and his sword blocked the 4 demon crown princes. Swoosh, swoosh. Sword Qi revolved around the Fusang Purewood. The 4 demon crown princes stared helplessly, and they had to be careful not to be contaminated by the ice flowers. If they were accidentally stained, they would have to consume a lot of natal true fire to dispel it. At the right time, 3 strange lights, one white, one black, and one purple gold, flashed out from Zhou Xiao's body and fell on the Fusang Divine Tree. It was a girl and 2 boys, 3 little children, sitting on the branches and swinging their legs. Old tree, they are fighting, let's not care, okay? The purple gold gourd was very polite, but he was holding his original purple gold gourd in his hand. The mouth of the gourd had been opened, and smoke had begun to come out from it. This is the Samadhi true fire of Master. I know you have a fire spiritual root, and you can absorb all the fire of heaven and earth to nourish yourself, but I don't know if you can withstand my Samadhi true fire. Why don't we try it today? This was an undisguised threat. The Fusang Divine Tree sighed. There's no need to try. How can I withstand the divine fire of the 8 Visions Temple? Do whatever you want, just don't destroy my life root. The purple gold gourd blinked. Which life root? You still have a life root. The Fusang divine tree was furious. Ignorant child. You. Puff, puff, puff. Point three sparks appeared. The old tree swallowed its anger. Whatever you say. Anyway, whatever life root. As long as it doesn't break. As it spoke, it suddenly screamed. A large section of its life root had been smashed by Zui Xiaodua's sledgehammer. Instantly, its old face trembled in pain, and it could not continue speaking. In a flash, a cave appeared on the ground. Just as Xiaoduo was about to enter, he suddenly felt a ray of light shining on his head. At this moment, he actually felt that it was extremely difficult to move. Xiaoduo instinctively turned his head and saw a golden-robed man holding a gourd a few thousand feet away. A small person appeared on the gourd, and a ray of white light shot out from the gourd's eyes, nailing his head. The golden-robed man's eyes were filled with shock. He looked at Xiaoduo, who was still able to turn his head to look at him after being nailed to the gourd by the white light. He did not dare to delay and hurriedly bowed slightly. "Baby, please turn around." Chapter 1386. That white light started to spin. The Jiubai and the purple golden gourd shouted at the same time, "Xiao Huang." So Xiaoduo felt a sharp pain in his neck, as if it was going to break at any time. In a fit of rage, he hammered the white light and scolded, "Spin your ass." With a loud bang, that white light trembled slightly from the impact, but it still pins Xiaoduo in place. Even with Xiaoduo's current cultivation base and strength, he was unable to break free. Instead, the piercing pain in his neck became even more intense. Damn, is he trying to take away my title as the leader of the Six Sons? With that thought, Xiaoduo panicked. He immediately activated Zhu Rong's primordial fire, which was about to reach the phenomenal stage. In an instant, the primordial fire surged into the sky. "Zhu Rong! Damn it!" The Fusang divine tree screamed. In a panic, it pulled out all of its roots, then rushed out as fast as it could. However, the Zhu Rong true fire came way too abruptly, and it didn't manage to escape from being burned by the fire. The Fusang heavenly tree did not dare to be slow. It quickly mobilized the Grand Sun primordial fire all over its body to counterattack Zhu Rong's primordial fire. The two flames collided with each other. When it finally extinguished Zhu Rong's primordial fire, the giant Trent's legs were already charred black. The Fusang heavenly tree was so frightened that it started to sweat. "What is this? What is this?" On the other side, the golden-robed man's primordial spirit was connected to the white light. After being hammered by Xiaoduo, the white light was shaken. Finally, he could not take it anymore and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale. The golden-robed man was obviously a ruthless person. He still refused to stop. His body was covered in flames, and he spat out another mouthful of blood onto the gourd. He shouted, "Treasure, please turn around." Zhu Rong's primordial fire had already wrapped around the white light and was burning intensely like never before. On the gourd in the hands of the golden-robed man, the illusory and incorporeal figure felt Zhu Rong's primordial fire and actually trembled continuously. The dense qi revealed a sense of resistance. However, when the golden-robed man spat out blood essence for the third time and shouted, "Please turn around, treasure," he was still forced to slowly turn around. At the same time, a wave of sadness suddenly rushed into everyone's heart. So Xiaoduo forcefully twisted his neck and directly detonated the elemental fire art at full force. All flames converged and reappeared in the mortal world. Open! The white light flashed and broke. The golden-robed man screamed as he was sent flying backward, blood spurting out of his mouth. However, Xiaoyan quickly followed up with an icy sword qi, piercing through one of the golden-robed man's shoulders. Her graceful figure flashed and directly reached out to grab the gourd in the hands of the golden-robed man. The gourd was already gone. The golden-robed man dodged in a panic and rolled on the ground. He was slashed by Xiaoyan until he was covered in blood. He shouted anxiously, "Are you all watching? The other three crown princes and the other demon experts roared at the same time and flew over. So Xiaoyan retreated and nailed her feet to the side of the cave. Her sword Qi turned into a blizzard and came down from above. The entire demon palace turned into a snowfield. This was the coldest day in the history of the demon palace, which had always been filled with the grand sun, primordial fire. On the other side, Xiaoduo had already flipped over and entered the cave. Although he saw the yellow gourd, he also heard the calls of Bai and the other small gourds. However, in the midst of a fierce battle, every minute and every second was precious. He could only let go of some minor details and focus on breaking the seal and saving Zhu Wu. Zhua Xiaoyan forced the four crown princes to retreat with her sword. Then she followed behind Zhua Xiaoduo and jumped down. The emperor's aura shook the sky. Demon Emperor Jun arrived. "Who are you?" The Flood, which laughed loudly. "Junior of the Wu people, Flood, greets the Demon Emperor." Two hammers appeared. The Thousand Souls nightmare hammers were fully unleashed. However, this time, the Great Witch of the Flood had never done such a thing before. The moment the battle started, he unleashed all of his combat power and opened fire. "Junior." Demon Emperor Jun smiled faintly. A sword suddenly appeared in his hand. With a clang, the sword that didn't look very heavy blocked Flood's big hammer without any effort. Although he seemed calm, Emperor Jun's body couldn't help but tremble slightly. He said in surprise, "You're from the Wu people of Zhu Wu's realm? The Wu people have Zhu Wu again? Not bad, not bad." The Flood, which trembled all over. "Your Majesty, please enlighten me." Even if it was Zhu Wu's realm, there was still a big gap between the initial stage and the peak stage. It was said that only Zhu Wu, who had reached the peak of Zhu Wu's realm, could compete with the Demon Emperor. The gap between the rest and the Demon Emperor was not small. Otherwise, the Wu people's 12 Zhu Wus wouldn't have fought so fiercely against the Demon Emperor. In the end, many Zhu Wus were sealed. As expected, even though he had reached the level of ancestral sorcerer and had consumed the 9 transformations golden elixir that Zhui Zhonglu had given him, causing his strength to increase once again, he was still suppressed by the Demon Emperor. The Demon Emperor laughed. "Enlighten me? That's good, that's good." He understood the true meaning of the Flood Witch's words. "Enlighten me. I'm a junior of the younger generation. I'm asking you, the Demon Emperor, for advice as a junior. Do you have a nerve to use tricks like He Tu and Luo Shu? Let's fight with our own strength. Let's see if you, the great senior, have the strength to make me, a junior of the Wu people, admire you." The true cultivators of the primordial world had their own profound cultivation abilities. They were all excellent and had their own trump cards. However, their Dharma treasures were also a huge highlight. There were even things that they relied on that exceeded their own capabilities. For example, if Tai Dong Wang didn't have the Bell of Chaos, his strength would be reduced by more than 30%. Another example would be Yao Huangjun. If he had used the He Tu in the Book of the Luo, he would have been easily sucked in by Hong Shui, Zhuozhang Lu, and his wife, who were only quasi-saints. Even if the three of them could work together to break out of the encirclement, it would be impossible without a certain amount of time. Once the three of them were trapped, Dong Wang, the Demon Empress, and the Demon Master could easily control Zhua Xiaoduo and Zhua Xiaoyan in the Demon Emperor Palace. Even if the three of them didn't do it personally, the group of Demon Immortals and the Demon Crown Prince were enough to deal with Zhua Xiaoduo. Therefore, the Flood, which was willing to lower herself, admit that she was a junior, and use words to control Demon Emperor Jun. This was of great significance to this battle. As a great senior, Demon Emperor Jun had to have this demeanor. With his status, if he had to use He Tu and Luo Shu to deal with a junior, it was simply, he couldn't afford to lose face. At that moment, the Flood, which used all her strength to activate the Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer and started a great battle with the Demon Emperor. The Demon Emperor was relaxed, as if he had no intention to stop Zhua Xiaoduo from destroying the restriction. This relaxation didn't seem to be fake at all. He completely ignored it, and only allowed the 4 crown princes to lead the palace guard to surround Zhuo and Zhuo. He didn't care about the battle situation, and the feeling of letting things go was too obvious. The Flood Witch's heart was moved, but her hands didn't stop. Suddenly, she said in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, Demon Emperor, have you been prepared for us to rescue Zhu Wu?" Suddenly, her heart sank. If the demon clan was prepared, it would be difficult to achieve their goal. But now, it seemed that the demon clan was prepared. Even the Kunpeng demon master, who was hundreds of thousands of miles away, had secretly returned. This was simply too obvious. The demon emperor was still calmly neutralizing the Flood Witch's continuous attacks. He said indifferently, "Of course, I have been prepared. Dijiang Xianming and the others are sealed here. As long as the Wu people know, how can I not take action?" However, the current situation of the world of great battles has already been decided. It is necessary to let them cross the mortal world again and participate in this immeasurable calamity. Regarding this, I have been prepared. The Flood Witch sensitively grasped the main point. As long as the Wu people know? Your Majesty, how do you know that the Wu people already know? The Demon Emperor said indifferently. When the Wu people passed away, Zhu Wu's legacy couldn't be inherited. You don't even know the cause of this karmic bond? Someone told you that there is a heavenly mystery to guide me. What is so hard to understand? The Flood Witch wielded her hammer as if she was flying. Her combat power increased by another level. She said coldly, "Now that the heavenly mystery is chaotic, even if there is a karmic bond, Your Majesty, without accurate information, it is rare for you to be so calm." The sword in the Demon Emperor's hand shone brightly. The sword light shot straight to the sky. He still said indifferently, "Gonggong Dijiang and the others may understand my calmness, but you don't. You don't deserve to understand." Both inside and outside the city were fighting. Flames were everywhere. It was chaotic. At the right time, a beam of light suddenly surged. The Demon Empress, Shiha, rushed over. "Is it the remnants of the Wu people?" The sword light flashed. Wu Yuting flashed out from the void. She said, "Your Majesty, the men are fighting. We women are here to play." Shia's palm hit Wu Yuting's sword head. She said indifferently, "Who are you? How dare you compare yourself to me? You're quite brave." Shiha was graceful and elegant, a national beauty, while Wu Yuting was also a peerless beauty, a beauty capable of causing the downfall of a city. Although their battle prowess was inevitably slightly inferior, just based on their appearances, it was hard to tell who was better. They were like orchids in spring and chrysanthemums in autumn. "I am Wu Yuting," Wu Yuting said indifferently. "People call me the Rain Demon." Shia's face became serious and complicated. "Astral Souls, the wife of the Sky Patrolling Minister? Your Majesty, I am honored that you know our names. I remember you, but not because you are famous." Shia's attack slowed down. She said softly, "Do you have a son? The one called Zhuo? Then what?" Xia hesitated. After a while, she bit her lip and said, "Is there a 3-legged golden crow by your son's side?" Wu Yuting was stunned when she heard that. Wu Yuting was also a veteran. Although her strength had improved, she knew that she was no match for the Demon Empress. However, she came out to ask for a battle. On one hand, it was dangerous. On the other hand, she had to stop the Demon Empress. On the other hand, she knew how the 3-legged golden crows fought. She was also familiar with the grandson, Primordial Fire. If the Demon Empress was too careless and thought that she was bullying the weak with the grandson, Primordial Fire, Wu Yuting was confident that she could catch the Demon Empress by surprise. She would let the Demon Empress know why the flowers were red. The human race was not to be bullied. But now, the Demon Empress knew about her son. She even knew about her son's relationship with Xiao. How could she not be prepared? She shouldn't have known. She sighed softly. She didn't need to say anything. Everything was contained in that sigh. Chapter 1387. After traveling with the Grand Master of Heaven, Shi He, Di Jun, and the others already knew about Xiao's name, identity, and background. In fact, his identity and background could not be a secret to such a mighty figure. It cannot be hidden. After she found out about Zhuo Xiaoduo's identity, she immediately understood that her son was definitely related to this kid. However, because of the Grand Master of Heaven's warning, the Demon Empress and even the Demon Emperor Dong Wang were moved. This kid is the successor of Ren's school, chosen by my eldest senior brother. He is the representative with full authority. He also has a deep relationship with Jie School. Your Majesty, if you want to do anything, you have to think twice before doing anything. Don't blame me for not warning you in the future. With that sentence, he could already confirm. Her son must have a huge karmic relationship with Zhuo Xiaoduo. When she returned and investigated Zhuo Xiaoduo's information, she quickly found more clues and was even more convinced of this point. Back then, the Crown Prince's Academy did not split up but stayed in the ancestral land. Back then, the seventh prince, Yi Qiong, had died in the Crown Prince's Academy. Now, his aura had appeared. All of this showed that he was related to the astral souls. Under such circumstances, those who were not blessed could not obtain the seventh prince's follower. So Xiaoduo could meet all the relevant conditions. He was a young hero who improved rapidly. He was a genius of a generation and a genius. He was regarded as the successor of the Grand Pure One and had formed a karmic bond with the Grand Pure One. He also had the help of the primordial beginning. He was also related to the three Pure Ones. He was the son of the leader of the astral souls and the adopted son of the leader of the Wu people. Along the way, he had all kinds of magical and awesome things that along the way, he had encountered many fortuitous encounters and gained all kinds of magical abilities that if such a person was not the son of destiny, who else could be? Only this kind of son of providence could possibly find traces of the seventh crown prince on this divided continent of the ancestral land. Furthermore, the seventh crown prince had clearly been confirmed to be dead, yet he was still able to revive. How could such a heaven-defying fate and resurrection be facilitated by an ordinary person? In summary, if someone had the ability to obtain the favor of the seventh prince, that person had to be Zhuo Xiaoduo, even if it was taken as a pet. Was it so easy to take a three-legged golden crow as a pet? Based on all the above, Xia had come to a conclusion long ago. This time, when she suddenly saw Wu Yuding, Xia asked this question after careful consideration. Then, she went straight to the point. If he were to beat around the bush, he would only make himself even more confused. He might as well go straight to the point. Yes meant yes, and no meant no. They were all high-level cultivators, so they had some dignity, or rather, some moral integrity. Wu Yuding took a deep breath and said, "The Demon Empress is indeed the Demon Empress. You have sharp eyes and hit the nail on the head." The Demon Empress immediately became excited. Even the sword moves in her hands became a little messy. After a while, she said nervously, "Little Sister Wu, it's their men who beat them up. Let's find a place to talk." As a mother, when she heard the news about her son, she was so excited that she didn't care about anything else. It was already the Demon Empress quality that she didn't forget herself. Wu Yuding was surprised. "You don't care about the seal here?" The Demon Empress was one of the top powerhouses of the demon race. Wu Yuding stepped forward bravely. Her biggest hope was to delay her for a while to buy time for Zhuo Xiaoduo and his wife. Now that the Demon Empress took the initiative to give up the battle, it would be strange if she wasn't surprised. The Demon Empress smiled. "Wu people came today. Of course, it's within our expectations. It might be because of luck. It should be the day when the 8 Zhu Wu escapes. The demon race doesn't want to be a hired thug." "A hired thug? What do you mean?" Wu Yuding was confused. "Someone told the sorcerer tribe about us sealing the ancestral sorcerer, but that person also told us about it." Xia's smile was very calm. "We and the Wu people have an ancient grudge. It's hard to reconcile our two opposing sides. A battle is inevitable. But if we start a war because of someone else's provocation, and we even have to do what the instigator wants, it will make the world look down on the demon race." She has smiled proudly. "If we want to defeat the Wu people, we have to do it fair and square. 1,000,000 years ago, we sealed the Zhu Wu. Now we can do it again. However, it's a different matter if you want to treat us as spears, as ferocious tigers that watch from the sidelines. So what if they're the 8 Zhu Wu? We'll let them go. Wu Yuting asked cautiously. That's not the whole reason, right? Of course. Shiha smiled. Of course there are other considerations. Wu Yuting couldn't help but sigh. She really admired the scheming and broad-mindedness of these ancient powerhouses. Especially broad-mindedness. They could make a plan that lasted for thousands of years, and they could also make the world collapse in an instant. Even if it was an enemy, even if it had been sealed, when it came to the big picture, when it was instigated, it would still give up without hesitation. I can win, I can lose, and I can die. However, if you want to use us as marionettes, no one is qualified enough to do so. Not even a saint. You can do whatever you want to me. What do you know? Therefore, the higher-ups of the demon race had already made a decision after receiving a message from someone. Moreover, just a few days ago, Empress Hutu came to the demon race palace in person and brought up a matter. It's time to fulfill the promise from back then. This sentence made the demon race emperor decide to release them on the spot. In the battle between the shamans and demons, the world was shattered. The Wu people lost. According to the agreement, they sealed themselves. Hutu, opened the reincarnation cycle, established the netherworld, transformed the primordial souls of the world, and opened the great Tao of reincarnation for living beings. In order to make up for the karma of the war between the shamans and demons, the people of the world were plunged into misery and suffering, and the world was fair and the vitality of all living beings. What about the demon race? As the victor, the demon race doesn't have to pay a price. The souls of those who died in the battle belong to the netherworld and are under the jurisdiction of Empress Hutu. If the calamity arises again, the shamans and demons will fight again. At that time, life and death, victory and defeat will be up to each other. Are the opponents still there? Of course. What do you think of being schemed against this time, Your Majesty? Opponents may not be eternal opponents. Even if they are eternal opponents, there will be times when they cooperate. This instigation was too clumsy. Your Majesty is indeed a wise person. I'm just afraid that your brothers don't know when to back down and ruin this counterattack. I'll persuade them. The shamans and demons can't just be used as chess pieces. I think so too. Back then, in the completely shattered world, the conversation between the demon emperor and the Zhu Wu was still vivid in his ears. The cause and effect were clear at a glance. Therefore, the battle between the shamans and demons was the most intense battle in the history of the calamity. It was the most tragic battle, but it was also the battle that ended the fastest. The fight started quickly, developed quickly, and ended abruptly as well. Just when everything had developed to the extreme, it suddenly came to an abrupt end. The world returned to peace. Then, it began a long period of recuperation. Even the demon race's heavenly court suddenly disappeared after the battle between the shamans and demons. Countless years later, during the investiture of the gods' tribulation, the world was in conflict again until the final chaos of the 9 races. The Wu people and Zhu Wu did not appear again. Instead, the Taoists and the Western sect caused a war. The various races joined in, but from then on, the various races were exiled to the starry sky. In the many battles, Goddess Hutu never appeared. She only used all her strength to regulate the netherworld and perfect the 6 paths of reincarnation. Today, the cleansing heavenly tribulation. This was a complete tribulation of the life and death of the entire race. Hutu finally appeared. Moreover, the Wu people obtained a sage position. Therefore, when someone instigated discord, both sides realized that it was time to fulfill the secret agreement. However, releasing people was one thing. If you fought and saved them with your true ability, we would let you go so calmly. Firstly, we would not be happy. Secondly, this was also a big show, a big net. Someone schemed against us. Let's see who has the guts to scheme against the shamans and demons at the same time. This was a reverse calculation. The shamans and demons are mortal enemies, but they also appreciate each other. She flashed and took Wu Yuting away. She also disappeared. Then, they arrived at a beautiful grotto heaven. The demon empress, she also said such a thing. This completely broke Wu Yuding's previous understanding. Her worldview was directly shattered. In people's long-held understanding, the battle between the shamans and demons was a battle of life and death. They would kill each other when they had the chance. At the very least, this was instilled in people's minds. However, the demon empress's first sentence was so earth-shattering. The battle between the shamans and demons was a battle of life and death. The demons were powerful, but the Wu people were second. The Wu people were born with strong physiques. Later, the 12 Zhu Wu dominated the world, and dozens of shamans dominated the world. Naturally, they wanted to fight for a place and become the main characters of the world. The demon empress, he said lightly. Therefore, they fought as soon as they came. However, although the battle with the Wu people was fierce, it was the only battle in so many years that they fought to their heart's content without any worries. Everything was decided by the outcome of the battle. There are no conspiracies or schemes between the two sides. Both sides fought as soon as the battle was announced. It was very simple. The Wu people's shamans died in our hands, and they did not complain. Our demon gods died in the hands of the Wu people, and they also left with a smile. There's no unwillingness, no vengeance that will last for generations. We were all from the same era, and our levels were similar. We would not bully the weak. As a Zenith Heaven Realm cultivator, we would never attack a Dao Integration cultivator. We could not afford to lose face. Since we were all at the same level, life was life, and death was death. He smiled bitterly. In the end, the Wu people were defeated. The remaining 9 Zhu Wu wanted to commit suicide and accept the fate of the losers. However, Di Jun and Tai felt that it was a pity, so they proposed to seal them. They announced their deaths to the outside world, but in fact, they accepted the fate of the losers. They were indeed upright heroes. The future was just as we thought. From then on, the whole Eldritch world became a world of conspiracies. All kinds of schemes, all kinds of discomforts, all kinds of instigation, and all kinds of alienation made us physically and mentally exhausted. Even the Kuan Peng was almost ruined by the scheme. He was betrayed by his friends and family, and he died. Damn it, the ending is approaching, but I have more and more ideas. I really want to knock myself out with the wine bottle. The wine in it. Chapter 1388. Although we monsters do not fight against the heavens and earth like the Wu people and regard fighting as the most important thing for survival, we monsters also believe that the bigger fist is the louder reason, and that strength is the most important truth. Therefore, fighting against the Wu people is especially satisfying. However, although the duration of the witchcraft calamity was short, it still caused great damage to the monster race. If not for the fact that Zhu Wu was a man of honor, he would admit defeat once he lost and did not continue to fight. Just the self-destruction of Zhu Wu was enough to drag us and Dongwang down with him. How could we not know the severity of the situation? Therefore, if you give me a peach, I will give you a jade in return. Back then, sealing the ancestral sorcerer was already the limit. It was just a means to hide from the eyes of the world, and it was also a means to let the shamans and demons stop the war. Looking at it now, the descendants of all branches of the sorcerer tribe were still around, and each of them had their own opportunities. For example, the Great Flood Sorcerer, who was inherited from the ancestral sorcerer Gong, could actually advance to the level of ancestral sorcerer with his own comprehension. How could it not be amazing? Also, the monster race has experienced many catastrophes. Not only me and my wife, Dongwang, and the Monster Master are still alive. Most of the 365 monster deities are still alive. This is the cause and effect of the witchcraft calamity. The more Wu Yuding listened, the more shocked she became. So this was the truth of the witchcraft calamity that had been passed down since ancient times. Just like what the Demon Empress said, if the Wu people had continued to fight against the higher-ups of the monster race when they lost, the most direct result would have been the destruction of Zhu Wu of the Wu people. However, it would also have taken away the Monster Emperor and Monster Empress Dongwang, the Monster Master, and a considerable part of the monster deities. However, if that was the case, in the immeasurable catastrophes that followed, the monster race and the Wu people would have been weakened. How could they escape the fate of being destroyed by other forces? Even if there were still fish that escaped the net, they would not be able to rise up again and fight for the main character of the world. The Demon Empress continued. The witch demon cataclysm was won by the demon race. However, after the cataclysm, the investiture god's cataclysm, and the journey to the West cataclysm, which symbolized the rise of the Western sect. After many calculations, the demon race was always in the calculations and was constantly weakened. I was sitting at home for no reason and was suddenly bitten. I'm really tired. I'm getting more and more annoyed by this kind of endless calamity. So, we followed the Tao ancestors' advice and withdrew from the conflict. Facts have proven that if we monster clans do not want to retreat and try our best to hold on, we will only be seen as the target of the other clans. We will definitely be targeted to the point of extinction. Even if we're not afraid, who wants to fight in such an atmosphere of conspiracy and be ground to death by a blunt knife bit by bit? Especially after experiencing the battle between pure men like the Great War with the Wu people, when faced with other schemes, we were bound everywhere and were always furious because of being schemed against by others. Everyone felt aggrieved because of the losses, but they did not know how to deal with it. If they played mind games with others, they would be beaten to death in minutes. Shiha recalled the grievances during that time and could not help but sigh. Her words were full of sorrow. My 10 sons were originally blood brothers. They were so close that they could give in to each other for anything. Moreover, my 10 sons never coveted the position of the Demon King. Everyone knows that the position of the Demon King will end with Jun sitting on it for thousands of years. However, after the Great War between the shamans and demons, the monster clans obtained the destiny and established the Heavenly Court. However, not many years later, the brothers began to scheme against each other. God knows how they were instigated. Then, it evolved to the point where they could not tolerate each other like fire and water. 7th brother died in the Crown Prince Academy when the 10 princes were fighting for power and profit at the most brutal time. Demon Empress Shiha looked up at the sky and sighed. The reason why we were willing to separate the monster continent and seal this world was very simple. We did not want to continue to be schemed against and be destroyed by all kinds of schemes. Wu Yuding put herself in their shoes and thought about it. She also felt a chill down her spine. If it were her, she would have fought with a bunch of straightforward people for thousands of years. Everyone would fight at the slightest disagreement. You fight 10 people, I fight 10 people. It was a fair fight. The bigger the fist, the bigger the argument, and the winner could make the decision. Then, one day, this group of people suddenly disappeared, and a new group of opponents was given to you. Each and every one of them was a schemer who pursued the theory of conspiracy and trickery. If they did not scheme against you, they would not fight you. Wouldn't you be at a disadvantage until you died with grievances? No wonder the Demon Empress had such an expression. No one would be able to stand it. 10 blood-related brothers who grew up together were instigated to turn against each other, let alone others. At that time, the demon race made a prompt decision to leave the ancestral land. It was a wise decision, but it was also a coward's decision. If I can't out-scheme you, can I leave? This isn't right. How could the 10 princes be instigated to this extent? Wu Yuding was confused. The Demon Emperor ruled the world and ruled the Demon Court. He had a long lifespan. The princes didn't have any chance to succeed him, right? Come to think of it, if one day even His Majesty the Demon Emperor perishes, then the so-called Demon Heavenly Court will definitely cease to exist. This is a logic that even I, an outsider, can understand. If the 10 princes don't, how can they still fight? Shiha rested her forehead on her hand and said, "That's how it used to be." The 10 little bastards all knew it. But after they were let out for a while, they suddenly changed. And none of them could tell why they changed their minds. Everything was so muddle-headed. There was no reason. Shiha also felt bad. It was true that she was the empress of the demon race, but her true nature was no different from the demon emperor Dong Huang Tai Yi. They were both straightforward and straightforward. She couldn't understand such twists and turns and couldn't be bothered to think about it. Of course, she couldn't understand. How could such a simple and straightforward reason be able to instigate her sons? But this was something that should have been impossible, yet it had happened. And after that, the princes were all confused. Why did she suddenly become confused? Why did she have to fight for the throne? Why did she have to fight for it? Why did she have to fight for the throne? Was she bewitched by Ing? After so many years of self-exile, the demon race finally straightened out their sons. This was also one of the main reasons why the three leaders of the demon race reacted so violently to the instigation of their relationship with the Wu people. Wu Yuting sighed along with her. She couldn't hold back her anger anymore. However, she knew that she couldn't blame Shiha for being calmer than she was. As a mother, she couldn't control her emotions so easily. I don't know. The golden crow by your son's side. Shiha asked carefully, what does he look like? Wu Yuting said, Xiao and I. My son looks like a dog, but he's terrible at naming. He's called the golden crow Xiao. I've always treated him like a treasure and treated him like a son. The last time I saw him, he was already very handsome. I heard that he could already transform. He looks like a chubby 7 or 8 years old child. His combat ability is especially good. He's already in the origin realm. Wu Yuting hadn't entered the Tower of Empyrean Destruction for a while. She had never seen Zhao's youthful appearance after transforming. Her impression of him was still that chubby and very lovable figure. As for the phrase, treat him like a son, it was a preparation for a rainy day. It was a foreshadowing to deal with the demon empress. Then, Shia's eyes welled up with tears. Is he good? Very good, very obedient, very lovable. Wu Yuting said very 3 times in a row. Shia's lips curled into a gentle smile. Then, her face darkened. She said, your son is really lucky. The golden crow is an innate divine creature. He actually took it as a pet. Wu Yuting understood the deeper meaning of her words. She said calmly, Your Majesty, what are you talking about? If Xiao hadn't met my son, he might not have been able to escape the tribulation and be reborn in this world. As for the pet, it's even more ridiculous. When Xiao Duo hatched the 3-legged golden crow with his natal fire element, the first thing the golden crow saw when it opened its eyes was Xiao Duo. It automatically called him mommy. My poor son, a young man, has been the mother of a golden crow for so many years. Tell me, automatically calling him mommy, a young man has been the mother of a golden crow for so many years? Tell me, here's the place to reason. Shia's face turned red and white. None of these topics were easy to answer. However, she was also able to put her heart back into her stomach. Wu Yuting pointed out a very important point. When the golden crow hatched with his natal fire element, the first thing it saw when it opened its eyes was Xiao Duo and treated him like a son. As the first 3-legged golden crow in the world, Shiha understood what this meant. The golden crow had escaped the tribulation and was reborn. The first thing it saw when it opened its eyes was indeed a natural sense of kinship. In this way, the pet contract connection she was most worried about would definitely not exist. Calling a boy mommy. The expression on Shia's face became very interesting again. She gently bit her rosy lips with her pearly white teeth, and the expression in her eyes changed. Yes, he calls my son mommy and my daughter daddy. This relationship is a mess, but he doesn't change. This is the way he wants to address me. Wu Yuting looked helpless. Every time he sees me, he sweetly calls Grandma to come up and asks for kisses, hugs, and hugs. Sigh. This little kid is always so naughty, but I like him from the bottom of my heart. This little grandson of mine. He's too naughty. She sounded naughty and seemed to be reprimanding him, but she was beaming with joy. Anyone could see how much Wu Yuting liked her little grandson. Calling a son mommy, calling a daughter daddy, why did he call Wu Yuting grandma? Shouldn't he call her grandpa, what am I thinking? Is this the key point? The key point now is the relationship, and seniority. Shia's face was like a dye shop with all kinds of colors, green, white, red, purple, blue, and blacked up. My son has become someone else's little grandson. Little brat, what should I do if you call me that? After all this time, I've summoned a mother-in-law into the house. There's a father-in-law outside. Oh my God. Shia's face suddenly darkened. Chapter 1389. Cough, cough, cough. Shia coughed. Wu Yuding kept a straight face and pretended that she didn't know anything. Demon Empress, you are. It's nothing. I caught a cold from the wind a few days ago. No matter how graceful and elegant Shia was, she didn't want to speak at this moment. She said something that no one would believe, but it wasn't a complete lie. After all, her face was really a little hot. Sister, what did you say that kid's name was? Xiao. My son is good in every way. He's handsome and has a high cultivation level. His name is terrible. He's such a good kid, but he's called Xiao. I don't know what he thought. Xiao. Xia couldn't help but be fascinated. She didn't feel offended at all. There was no need to say more. Just the name Xiao was enough to prove a lot. Most people would name their children Xiao. It was an obvious nickname. They would treat their children like a treasure and dote on and protect them. Xia was also a mother. How could she not know this when she put herself in her mother's shoes? Xiao is the treasure of the whole family now. Wu Yuding said that Zhao's treatment was 10 times better. As for how Zhuo Xiaoduo trained him, how he ran around the Tower of Annihilation, how he was beaten up by Zhuo Xiaoduo, how he was often burned into a ball burr by the essence fire art. These were definitely things that couldn't be said. As for the rest, that how Xiao was mischievous, how weird he was, how he swallowed resources and ruined countless spirit plants, spirit fruits, spirit seedlings, and spirit roots. These were all things that could be said and talked about in a big way. Wu Yuding, who also had the 9 feet higher sky attribute, wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. Also, how he pecked little Gigi with his little sharp beak, and how he drilled a hole in someone's, but that these were things that could be said selectively to Demon Empress. Shiha laughed heartily. To know so clearly what kind of life her son was living, how carefree and unrestrained he was, how he could do whatever he wanted, how relaxed and happy he was, that Shiha felt very satisfied and envious just by listening to it. She really hoped that she could participate in this beautiful period of time. That would be such a happy period of time. By the way, he has a sword with him, right? Shia smiled, looking much more relaxed. Yes, that sword is Her Majesty Empress Hua's personal sword. Wu Yuding said blandly, since it is the sword of Her Majesty Empress Hua, it is the holy weapon that should be worshipped by our clan. Wu Yuding was telling the truth. Aside from being a primordial divine artifact, the Huahuang sword was a genuine treasure of virtue. It was also Empress Nuwa's personal sword. Aside from being a saint of the Yao race, Goddess Nuwa was also the mother of humanity. She had always been worshipped by humans. Ever since the Huahuang sword entered the Tower of Void Extermination, it had been recuperating and nourishing itself with countless resources. Occasionally, it would come out to kill enemies spontaneously. The Huahuang sword was originally Empress Hua's personal weapon and had an immortal sword spirit. It could barely be used in a short period of time. Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan also had their own weapons. Although the Huahuang sword was good, it was not taken seriously by Zhuo Xiaoduo. For Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan, whether it was the cat spirit sword, the spirit snatching sword, or the 9x9 cat hammer, they were irreplaceable, no matter how easy it was to use them or how easy it was to use them. Not to mention that these weapons had been nurtured step by step since the two were at their weakest. They had a deep relationship with each other. During this period of time, they had encountered a lot of opportunities. They had drunk blood and seized lives, weathered storms, and seen the vicissitudes of life. They had vaguely developed the embryonic form of transforming into divine artifacts. As long as they kept using them for a long time, one day they would surpass the Huahuang sword in all aspects. Therefore, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan had never thought of using the Huahuang sword from the beginning to the end. Otherwise, if either of them wanted to, the Huahuang sword would have undoubtedly changed hands since it had been in the Tower of Void Extermination for a long time. Even if it used to be Empress Wa's divine weapon. Now that he was talking about it in front of Shiha, it was of great significance. Shiha smiled more and more happily. Her attitude toward Wu Yuding became much more cordial in an instant. In particular, Shiha was very sure of one thing. Perhaps Wu Yuding and the others had already guessed Zhao's identity, but they didn't know it for a long time before. Because the primitive age and the current historical knowledge of the astral souls had been separated for too long, then there was a problem. They didn't know the identity of your son, but they still treated him like that. There was only one reason. They really liked him. They didn't have any other purpose. And what was more rare was that they didn't want anything. Not even a supreme treasure like the Huahuang sword, a virtuous saint weapon. Didn't that mean that they didn't have any intention of scheming? It was an undeniable fact. They didn't want such a great temptation. What kind of spirit was this? What kind of moral integrity was this? After learning about these things, Shiha felt that if she still had doubts about this family, even if it wasn't intolerable, at least there was no evil smell. If she put herself in his shoes, she knew that she couldn't remain indifferent to a divine weapon like the sword of Empress Envy. Sister's family is really. Shiha praised from the bottom of her heart. But halfway through his words, he suddenly felt awkward. Her son called her grandma, but she called her sister. Based on seniority, did she have to call her aunt? But who could afford to lose face like this that I'm the dignified demon empress, the first batch of innate life forms? Other than the Tao ancestor, even the group of saints were at most peers. When had they ever bowed down to him? Wu Yuding's cultivation isn't weak now, but compared to me, she's still hundreds of thousands of generations behind. Therefore, when she heard Wu Yuding say that Xiao was naughty, she really felt like slapping her butt. Not only did Shiha not feel the slightest bit of heartache, but she was even more eager to give a try. She wished that she could give that delicate little butt of hers a good slap with all her might. That little brat, you've made your mother suffer. At this point, she was almost done talking. When Wu Yuding saw that the demon empress was not pleased with herself, she very understandingly said, "To be honest, from the beginning, we felt that it was strange." With regard to Xiao Zhao's background, there were many suspicious points. In front of the demon emperor and demon empress, although we are the younger generation, we are also the existence that stands at the peak of the star soul human race. We boast that we are experienced and knowledgeable. But with regard to Xiao Zhao's background, we do not know anything at all. She finally got to the point. Shia's eyes lit up. Then what do you think? Today's conversation could be said to be the most difficult and indescribable conversation in the Demon Empress life. But it was also the conversation that she looked forward to the most. Although it was awkward, although she felt conflicted, although she was inexplicably embarrassed, although all of the above were at the extreme. But the joy and comfort in her heart were also at the extreme. As the supreme of the demon race, Shiha had never lowered herself like this in her entire life. She had always been graceful and at ease, the model of the mother of the world. She was so luxurious that people didn't dare to raise their heads, not to mention being embarrassed or at a loss. Being approachable was already the limit. But today, all of this was broken. When Xiao started to have the ability to breathe the soul true fire, we were already thinking. Wu Yuding said, but at that time, we didn't know what was going on. Even now, we don't understand. Zhao's memory hasn't recovered? Or, when we set off a while ago, Zhao's mind was in a mess for a while. It seemed like her memory was recovering, but not completely. Wu Yuding frowned. We don't have much experience in this area. Naturally, we can't be sure. Let nature take its course. She took a deep breath and said, did you find Xiao in Crown Prince Academy? That day, Xiao Duo did go to Crown Prince Academy to train. But when it comes to the place where he found the Golden Crow egg, it can't be considered Crown Prince Academy. Wu Yuding said, according to Xiao Duo's description, that place is another chaotic world located in Crown Prince Academy. To be honest, his explanation is beyond our understanding. To this day, we still don't understand it. After all, Crown Prince Academy can be considered a paradise, an independent space. Another independent space within an independent space is a chaotic world. At that time, the astral souls, the Umno Alliance, and the Tao League couldn't understand it. A chaotic world. She has pretty face darkened. What kind of chaotic world is it? According to Xiao Duo, that chaotic world seems to be suppressed by a mysterious force above Crown Prince Academy. It might not be suppressed, but it's the original chaotic world. Wu Yuting wasn't trying to shirk responsibility. She really didn't know much about Zui Xiaoduo's experience. Although Zui Xiaoduo had bragged many times, bragging about how he was wise and mighty, and how he could traverse the chaos, but Wu Yuting hadn't experienced a real chaotic world. She wanted to explain it more clearly, but it was difficult. But who were Shiha and the Demon Empress? They instantly understood. There's a chaotic channel in Crown Prince Academy. The Demon Empress's face darkened. A rising anger seemed to be brewing, ready to erupt at any time. At this moment, Wu Yuting still didn't know the true meaning behind the Demon Empress words. She was still confused and didn't know the how and why. Can I meet with your son later? A myriad of thoughts flashed through the Demon Empress's eyes. She had just figured out many things, but she still needed more information to verify them. Maybe Wu Yuting didn't know much about the whole story, but Zui Xiaoduo, as someone who had experienced it, must know more. And this was related to the bitter history of the demon race for so many years. Moreover, if she met Zui Xiaoduo, there was a great chance that she could meet Xiao and the Huahuang sword. Not to mention the Huahuang sword spirit. She could learn more about the past from Yiqiong. If she could completely recover her memories through meeting them, everything could be sorted out and everything could be solved. They're still out there trying to save Zhu Wu. Wu Yuting coughed. I'm afraid the Demon Emperor will beat him up. Every year at this time, all kinds of graduation banquets are a headache. Chapter 1390. Wu Yuting glanced at Shiha and said slowly, that brat of mine has only been cultivating for a short period of time. His path has been too smooth, and his temper isn't very good. If he gets hurt, he probably won't cooperate. Then she smiled bitterly and said, Demon Empress, please understand. I don't mean to threaten you. After all, our two clans have a very deep relationship now. That brat's temper is really like he doesn't want to leave when he's pulled. Sometimes it really gives me a headache. I really want to beat his, but until it blossoms. Shiha also smiled bitterly when she heard this. That brat of yours not only has a bad temper, he also has a very strong backer. As for the worries of us injuring or killing him, they don't exist at all. Even the immortal slaying flying blade couldn't do anything to that brat. And it was almost stolen along with the gourd dot right now. It's just a show outside. Wu Yuting said, then after this is over, let's have a gathering. Okay. After the agreement was made, the Demon Empress became more spirited. Her eyes were filled with anticipation. Right now, the Demon Empress wanted the battle to end quickly more than anyone else. It would be best if the battle could end immediately. Hurry up and release those few unlucky ancestral shamans of the shaman tribe, and let my son and I reunite as soon as possible. Then let's go out and take a look. Thus, the two women walked out hand in hand. While the two female experts were deep in conversation, the battle outside became more chaotic. At this moment, the four Golden Crow Princes had already retreated to the side and were eyeing covetously. On the battlefield, the Demon Emperor was fighting Zhuo Changlu and the Flood Witch by himself. The battle between the three strongest cultivators of the three continents was so violent that the battle space was isolated. Although outsiders could see it from afar, they were unable to interfere. Even a peak expert like the Demon Master was no exception. If he tried to force himself, he would have to endure the backlash from the combined force of the three of them. Based on the cultivation of the three of them, the backlash was enough to heavily injure anyone in the world. As far as the eyes of the demons could see, the three of them did not utter a single word as they continued to attack ferociously. The Demon Emperor single-handedly withstood the Flood, Witch, and the Sky-Inspecting Throne. Not only did he not fall into a disadvantageous position, he even exuded a sense of calmness from time to time, as if he wanted to continue fighting. The Flood Witch and Zhuo Changlu joined forces to resist the Demon Emperor. It seemed like they were able to maintain a stalemate, but in fact, they were already complaining in their hearts. They were all people who had been through a lot. Before coming here, they had already overestimated the Demon Emperor's strength as much as possible. However, they did not expect that they had still underestimated the Demon Emperor. The difference between them was actually so huge. It was almost a qualitative difference. He was originally rejoicing that Wu Yuding had lured the Demon Empress away. Now, the Flood, which was actually worried about Wu Yuding's safety. Jean Fa could not help but become slightly impatient. After all, the Demon Emperor and the Demon Empress Dongwang were of the same origin. Even if the Demon Emperor was the strongest, the Demon Empress would not be too far behind. Even if the two of them joined forces, they would only be able to fight to a stalemate. Wu Yuding's cultivation was below him and Zhuo Changlu. It was inevitable that it would be difficult for her to fight alone. On the contrary, as the husband, Zhuo Changlu was not worried at all. He was very clear that with Zhuo Xiaoduo as a link and with Xiao as a trump card, Wu Yuding would not be in any danger. What the two of them were most thankful for was that Dongwang Tai had not appeared at all. If Dongwang Tai had appeared at this moment, the difference in their combat strength would have been directly unbalanced. Then everything would have been over. Now it was still not optimistic. Their only hope was that the few Zhu Wustai would be able to escape, combine everyone's strength, and break out of the encirclement in one fell swoop. Otherwise, with the current situation, it would be very difficult to break out of the encirclement. Both of them were praying and hoping in their hearts. Xiao Duo, you have to succeed quickly. Your father can't hold on any longer. At this time, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaonian had already gone straight into the depths of the catacombs. Without any hesitation, they immediately splashed the great shaman blood essence that the Flood which had prepared in advance on the formation map. Then, they exerted all their strength, using the 9-9 cat hammer to carry Zhu Rong's fire, and smashed it down with a loud bang. At the same time, Zhuo Xiaonian's Xiao Duo also spat out extreme freezing frost. However, it was the fusion of ice and fire, forming an extremely opposite energy attribute. Through this, it formed an even more violent destructive power. With a loud bang, the flickering formation map shook violently and swayed violently. Then it exploded with a loud bang. A dense space suddenly appeared in a flash. Zhuo Xiaoduo still did not hesitate and rushed in headfirst. Then Zhuo Xiaonian, who had grabbed the back of Zhuo Xiao's robe, was brought in quickly. Immediately, the formation map flashed again, repeating the original seamless state. The next moment, both of them felt as if they were in an independent world. They were in the void of an unknown height and were falling rapidly like meteors. Both of them reacted quickly. In the blink of an eye, they had already lifted their qi and were as light as a feather. However, they were shocked to find that both of them had already landed on the ground. It was as if they had been suddenly pulled down. At this moment, they were standing on a majestic and towering mountain. No, all around them were majestic mountains. They were so high that their peaks could not be seen. It was more like a deep pen container. And Zhuo Xiaoduo and Xiao Duo were standing in this pen container. Near the place where they landed, there were 9 people sitting together in a big circle, drinking wine. Those 9 people were still holding their wine bowls and looking up with interest at Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaonian, who were floating down. These 9 burly men were all tall and sturdy. They had the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear. Even though they were sitting down, they were almost as tall as an ordinary person. If they stood up, each of them was conservatively estimated to be about 2.5 meters tall. As far as the eye could see, the 9 people's faces were simple, but there was a sense of heroism, the kind of mighty aura that belonged to male creatures. If one had not experienced it before, just looking at the 9 of them would be immediately clear. Majestic and mighty. Even if they were just sitting there without moving, they were still like mountains, as deep as the abyss and as awe-inspiring as the peaks. It made people involuntarily feel that although they did not show any power, as long as they moved, they would be invincible. They could even flatten a mountain. It's what Xiaoduo and Zhuxianyan just happened to land in the middle of the 9 people. Fortunately, the 9 people were just sitting in a circle and did not set up a table. Otherwise, Xiaoduo and Zhuxianyan would have fallen directly into the soup bowl. In an instant, it became a cat and dog soup. The two of them could not help but be stunned for a moment. They were stunned and did not know what to say for a long time. Zhuxianyan was obviously more nervous than Xiaoduo. She hugged Xiaoduo's arm. Her big round eyes kept scanning the faces of the 9 people. Xiaoduo scratched his head subconsciously. What was going on? How could there be 9 of them? Didn't they say that there were only 8 people trapped in this realm? What was going on with this extra one? This was a very serious error in the information. Looking at the clothes of the 9 big men, they were almost exactly the same. They were all wearing coarse hemp robes. 9 pairs of eyes all stared at the Zhu Rong true fire that Xiaoduo had not yet retracted. After a moment of shock, they all smiled bitterly. I didn't expect that someone from the Wu people would finally come, but it is a disciple of a brother who is no longer here. I don't know if it is a coincidence or not. When he spoke, there was a hint of disappointment and loneliness in his voice. As the Zhu Rong true fire on Xiaoduo's body gradually disappeared, the unique aura of the 1,000 Souls nightmare hammer surged out. One of the big men suddenly showed a look of surprise in his eyes. He murmured, "No, it is mine." Another man curled his lips and said, "Don't flatter yourself. Didn't you see that girl's body is full of extremely cold aura? I'm 99% sure that it has something to do with me." Another man stared at the 2 hammers and said, "This guy is very strong. He's like me when I was young." The person at the end of the line said disdainfully, "You're all shameless. What are you looking at? You're all hoping to have something to do with yourself. Are you all blind? Are these 2 brats from our sorcerer tribe? Can't you see that they have the god-slaying sword, the light of the Tai Chi diagram, and all kinds of gourds? How can the Wu people have such talents? How can they have such luck?" Ha ha. The 9th man who had been silent all this time laughed. He shook his body and revealed his true appearance. He was wearing a yellow robe, worry-free shoes, and a towering crown. He was majestic and glorious, the ruler of the world. Xiaoduo and Zhuxianyan were taken aback. Their eyes almost popped out of their sockets at the same time. First, because they had seen this person before. Second, because this person was not the second leader of the demon clan, the brother of the demon king, Dong Wang Tai. Who was he? His Majesty Dong Huang Tai. Xiaoduo's lips suddenly opened. He couldn't help but open his mouth wide. Why is he here? The enemy they were most afraid of was His Majesty Dong Wang Tai. His Majesty Dong Wang Tai hadn't shown up since the beginning of the battle. They thought that he was not here, but he was guarding somewhere else. How could he be here? After so much effort, they finally broke in. They were relieved. When they were glad that they didn't meet Dong Wang Tai, they found that, the big guy was lying in ambush here. Wasn't this asking for his life? So Xiaoduo was really stunned. Didn't Yin Mao and I walk into a trap? Just as he was feeling scared, Dong Wang Tai suddenly shouted, "How dare you, little bastard! How dare you ruin the demon clan's plan for thousands of generations? I'll kill you today." As he spoke, he took out the Dongwang bell. His eyebrows were furrowed, and his whole body was filled with murderous intent. He knocked on the Dongwang bell with his palm. Instantly, there was a melodious and pleasant sound. Xiaoduo and Xiaoyantai moved at the same time. They had already slipped behind one of the Zhu Wu. Xiaoduo shouted, "Senior Zhu Wu, listen to me. We didn't gather all the elites of the Wu people to rescue the senior Zhu Wu. Now that Dongwang Tai is surrounded by us, it's the best time to work together to get rid of him. Hurry up and attack together. Cut off one of the Demon King's arms and greatly damage the Demon Clan's fate. Everyone attack together. I'll hold the line for you." Chapter 1391. Dong Wang Tai and the 8 Zhu Wu were all stunned. Damn, this kid's brain works too fast. He clearly saw us drinking with Dong Wang Tai, but he still managed to sow discord between us. What a great temptation. The 8 Zhu Wu combined forces to encircle Dong Wang. Even if Dong Wang had the Dong Wang bell, he would still die. Once Dong Wang died, not only would the Demon King lose an arm, but more than 30% of the Demon King's fate would also be lost. So, what reason do they have not to do it? That was right. If the Sorcerer Tribe and the Demon Tribe were still at odds with each other, then it would not be a question of why they should not do it. Ha ha ha! Roar! Howl! Ha ha ha! Wah ha! Ha 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 ha! Dong Wang and the 8 Grand Magi laughed heartily. Some of them were holding their stomachs, some were slapping their thighs, some were flipping on the ground, some were spitting out saliva. They really didn't care about their image, especially the guy in the middle who had a leopard head and round eyes and looked like a hedgehog. He almost spat out his teeth. So Xiaoduo stuck his head out and looked at the strange scene in front of him. He scratched his head and continued to look confused, not knowing what to do. What's going on? Are you fucking kidding me? Or are you kidding me? Or are you kidding me? Dong Wang stood up and laughed. Congratulations to all of you. Today is the day you will be able to leave this place. From now on, the dragon swims in the sea. The phoenix soars in the sky. The sky is high for the birds to fly, and the sea is wide for the fish to swim. One of the ancestral magi said solemnly, although the feud between the magi and demons has become a thing of the past, the heavenly calamity has begun, and the two races are once again at odds with each other. After leaving this time, there will definitely be a life and death battle in the future. Brother Dong Wang, take care. This is the head of the 6 sons, the head of the grand sun True Flame. Don't let it be schemed against by others. Dong Wang laughed and said, Di Jiang, although I don't have the brain to play tricks, I am better than you. What you said is exactly what I want to say to you. Another ancestral sorcerer said impatiently, don't open your mouth and keep talking about me. It's so awkward. Is it so difficult to call yourself? I don't like your pretentious dog shit look. You're just a crow. Why are you pretending to be cool? Dong Wang's smiling face suddenly turned ugly. Xianming, are you provoking me? Xianming shrugged and clapped his hands. Instantly, a bone-chilling coldness overflowed. The entire area was covered in ice. The ground under his feet turned into a glacier. The glacier then turned into black ice. All of a sudden, the whole place was filled with ice crystals. He raised his head and said proudly, You're anxious. You're still like this after so many years. You're anxious because I poked you. At the very least, what did I say wrong? Could it be that you're not a crow? Could it be that you're a phoenix? Besides, you keep calling me emperor in front of us. Do you think you're our emperor? Do we recognize you as our emperor? Oh, look at your pale face. I can't believe you're so angry just because I said one sentence. You're really worthy of being a bye-bye in the untainted land. Today, you're still a Bai-Yin. Well, I heard you're still single. Then I should say you're a Bai-Yin. TSK, TSK, TSK. Even the air froze as he spoke. Zhuo Xiaoyan saw this scene and couldn't help but feel satisfied. It turned out that there was such an end to the power of ice. She was not alone. Zhuo Xiaoduo was dumbfounded by what he saw. Seeing this Xianming Zhu Wu with his own eyes, Zhuo Xiaoduo couldn't help but think of the Ice Nether Witch. They had the same ice attribute, the same power of cultivation techniques, and the same temper. Their way of doing things was also exactly the same. Especially that familiar cheap smell. It was like a gust of wind. If he hadn't seen the other party speak, he would have thought that the Ice Nether Witch had come personally. It seems like the Ice Nether Witch not only inherited the Xianming Zhu Wu's cultivation techniques, but also his personality. It's just that the inheritance of his personality is a little too much, but the inheritance of his cultivation technique is a little lacking. Is this the characteristic of the Xianming cultivation technique? This is really breathtaking. Dong Wang was so angry that his whole body was trembling. Xianming, you'll die because of your mouth one day. There won't be any accidents. That's all I'm saying today. Dong Wang was furious. Ha ha ha. I'm scared because of what you said. Xianming shrugged. He didn't care about it from the inside out. The other 7 ancestral sorcerers were speechless. Dijiang and Gonggong sighed. It wasn't easy for Xianming to live until now. How could a good shaman have such a mouth? They didn't know how many unnecessary wars had been caused by this cheap mouth. In those years, the Wu people had become the enemy of the whole world. Most of it was because of this mouth. The rest was because of the Brotherhood. They couldn't just stand by and watch someone die. Sometimes, the Zhu Wu felt lucky. Fortunately, the Wu people only had one such bastard after so many years. If there was one more, they were afraid that it would be really hard to deal with. Young man, Xianming said, who's your master? How can you know Zhu Rong's true fire? Why do you cultivate Gonggong's great wave magic? Is the little girl beside you a descendant of mine? Why does she cultivate in the same way as me? No danger to Xiaoduo wasn't scared at all. This guy was taking advantage of his seniority. You're too young to take advantage of your seniority. My family name is Zhua. I belong to the astral souls. Senior Xianming, can we not talk so much? I was not joking with all of you just now. This time, in order to save all of you, the elites of the Sorcerer Tribe and the Star Soul Tribe have really been mobilized. I reckon that there are people who are constantly fighting and dying. I wonder if you still want to maintain your interest? Do you have to make it clear here? If you really don't care, I'll talk with you for a few days. Zhua Xiaoduo's mouth had been trained for a long time. It had been tested for a long time. How about the Ice Hell Shaman? He had never taken advantage of Zhua Xiaoduo's mouth. Zhua Xiaoduo's words made Xianming's stomach full of shit. He opened his mouth, but couldn't say anything. He could say, then let's talk. If he dared to say it, Zhua Xiaoduo would definitely keep him company. But the other Zhu Wu would immediately hit him with their fists to shut him up. The sky was dark outside to save them. You want to talk here? If you don't want to talk, just get out. Then what you asked just now was bullshit, wasn't it? At such an important time, you're talking nonsense. What are you doing? You're a Zhu Wu. Zhua Xiaoduo really dared to talk back, especially with Dongwang next to him. With this outsider present, Zhu Wu wouldn't be shameless. The Goblin race and the Wu people had reached an agreement to let them go. But in order to put on a show, the battle outside was real. People died at every turn. It was real. Huff, huff, huff. Xianming Zhu Wu glared at Zhua Xiaoduo and was about to say, then let's get out quickly. Zhua Xiaoduo took the initiative and said angrily, what's with your attitude? Is this how you treat your savior? Are you harboring ill intentions towards me? Do you have ill intentions towards me? Are you trying to target me? That look was so fierce. Xianming, haha. Dong Wangtai finally couldn't help but burst into laughter. The other Zhu Wu were also amazed. They really didn't expect that there would be someone in this world who could use words to suppress Xuanming's cheap mouth. They had lived for a long time that they couldn't help but admire him. In fact, they didn't know that the reasons with Xiaoduo could suppress Xianming was because young Master Zhua was at a higher level than Xianming and Xianming. If Xianming and Xianming were cheap gods, Zhua Xiaoduo was already a saint. A cheap saint. Dongwang suddenly remembered that Zhua Xiaoduo had sat on a saint's futon in the Purple Cloud Palace. Although he said that he didn't want to sit on it, it was a fact that he had sat on it. Could it be Zhua Xiaoduo's saint position was really cough cheap? No, Sword Dao. Dongwang laughed, raised his wine cup, and drank it in one gulp. Everyone, we'll meet again after today. We'll meet again after today. The 8 Zhu Wu raised their cups together and drank it in one gulp, showing their heroism. The Wu people and the Goblin race were mortal enemies, but the higher-ups of the Goblin race did appreciate each other. Everyone disliked each other, but at the same time, everyone was pleasing to the eye. Even though they had been sealed here for so many years, they hadn't been mistreated, nor were there any restrictions. Sometimes, Dongwang and the Goblin King would even come to chat and drink with them. Everyone talked freely and drank to their heart's content. Sometimes, even the Goblin Empress would come. The atmosphere was very harmonious, just like old friends meeting. Now that things had come to this, it was finally time to part ways. Have a safe trip, everyone. I won't see you off. Let's fight again next time. Dongwang let out a long laugh. His body slowly rose and gradually disappeared in midair. He had said what he needed to say. They would still be enemies when they met again. They would fight when they needed to fight, kill when they needed to kill, and cooperate when they needed to cooperate. Kid, follow us. Seeing Donghuang's figure disappear, the 8 Zuwu gathered their strength and combined their strength. Their power soared to the sky. Following a loud explosion, the entire demonic beast imperial palace flipped over. The restriction outside had been broken by Zhuo Xiaoduo. Although it had been mended, the flaw still existed. At this moment, the 8 Zuwu worked together. Of course, the only way was to destroy everything. With this loud bang, the 3 people who were fighting outside stopped. Then, the 8 Zuwu broke the seal and reappeared in the world. 8 devil-like figures stood in the dust-filled sky, looking up to the sky and laughing loudly. I'm out. Goblin King Dijuan, who had expected this, also laughed. I'm out. Zhuo Changlu and the Flood, which were experienced people. They could see the big picture from the small details. They instantly connected the dots of the rescue operation. How could they not guess that the Goblin King might have deliberately released the 8 Zuwu? They couldn't help but admire the Goblin King's magnanimity. The great enemy that had been imprisoned and sealed by him for so many years had finally broken free. Even if it was intentional, the Demon Emperor's laughter was hearty and filled with faint anticipation. It was enough to show how noble and pure his nature was. Gonggong Zuwu laughed and said first, Emperor Jun, thank you for your hospitality for so many years. We, the Wu people, will definitely repay your kindness in the future. Emperor Jun narrowed his eyes. Since you have broken out of the seal, you will only be Zhu Wu of the Wu people. There is no need to say anything else. You can go now. There will be a battle between you and us in this calamity. Let's see which of us is stronger. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Ancestral sorcerer Di Jiang let out a long howl. This battle ends here. All members of the sorcerer tribe, stop. Following this shout, the sounds of battle outside the demon imperial city slowly died down and gradually came to a stop. The sound of the wind could be heard. Both sides had rushed over. The Goblin King shouted, that Wu people's poison-transporting junior. Leave the antidote and we will call a day. The non-poisonous shaman scoffed and threw down dozens of small porcelain bottles. Greetings, old ancestors. The Flood which led the other shamans and bowed. What is your name? Flood. Flood, you have reached the Zuwu realm. You don't have to belittle yourself. You could be on the same level as me. In the prehistoric era, those who are stronger are the first. This is especially true for the descendants of the Wu people. Reaching the Zuwu realm means reaching the peak of the Wu people. You can't be weaker than others. You must remember this. Yes. Gonggong Zuwu looked at Flood and said flatly, you have walked your own path and are no longer my disciple. You must remember this too. Yes. This time, the Star Soul Human Clan's Zhuo clan has put in a lot of effort to rescue all of you. If it wasn't for their help, it would be difficult for our Shaman clan to handle this alone. This matter might not have gone so smoothly. The Flood Witch, Flood Zuwu, started to introduce Zhuo Changlu and his family. He emphasized their help this time. Greetings, Senior Zhu Wu. Zhuo Changlu and Wu Yuding bowed side by side. They were neither arrogant nor humble. Thank you, Dijiang Zhu Wu said. We will remember today's kindness. Empty words are meaningless. We will see in the future. When facing Monster Emperor Jun, Dijiang said that he would repay him greatly. However, in the face of Zhuo Zhonglu and his family, Dijiang did not say more. Gratitude wasn't expressed in words. Actions were needed to show it. Senior, please don't mind. Flood and I are good friends. After this disaster, the Astral Souls humans and the Umno Alliance have made an agreement to help each other. This time, I came to help you. Half of it is personal friendship, and the other half is expedient. Ha! Good. You are honest and sincere. You are a good friend. Dijiang looked at Zhuo Changlu and couldn't help but ask, is this your son? He then looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo. Zhuo Xiaoduo immediately straightened his chest. Ancestral Witch, you don't have to be so courteous. Everyone looks out for each other. I just did what I should do. Speaking of thanks, it's too much. Dijiang's lips twitched. Did I say thank you? I said thank you to your father. I have given him enough face. Why would I say thank you again? That's my son. My son is young and inexperienced. His cultivation is shallow. Master Zhu Wu, please don't laugh. Zhuo Changlu said politely. I just said that your words are honest and sincere. Now you are being modest? I said before that in the untainted land, those who are strong are the first. As the saying goes, young and inexperienced and shallow cultivation. Why can't your son be the first? Your son is talented and talented. The minister of the left is really lucky. Dijiang praised Xiaoduo sincerely. He only left the last sentence that he was too embarrassed to say. This sentence was naturally, especially in another aspect, he is even more outstanding. He can be called the best in the world. As for which aspect, those who understood, understood, so there was no need to say it out loud. Let's go. We will settle the score with the Demon Clan in the future. Dijuan, we are leaving now. Do you have anything else to say? If not, we will meet again in the Jianghu. The Demon King said lightly, I just said that when you break out of the seal, you will only be the Wu people Zhu Wu. You will only be enemies with each other. However, there is no need to be anxious about the hatred of your life today. I will let you gather and be happy and reunite with your people. At the same time, I will also give you a chance to leave your inheritance. Last time, I was in a hurry and did not leave any inheritance, causing a gap in the inheritance of the Wu people. Today, I am quite disappointed when I meet with the junior wizards. The Demon King is indeed the Demon King, Dijiang said lightly. In that case, my brother and I will leave now. Go ahead, Minister of the Left, let's go. Zhuo Zhonglu smiled and said, Ancestors of sorcery, please leave first. I came here because I still have a matter to discuss with His Majesty, the Demon Emperor. Xianming Zhu Wu said, Do you need help? Zhuo Changlu smiled. This has nothing to do with war. I believe the Demon King will not make things difficult for me. Gong Gong pulled Xianming's sleeve and said, In that case, we will leave now. Then, with a loud whistle, the group of powerful sorcerer tribesmen soared into the sky and left. After a short while, only the 4 people of the Zhuo family were left. The flood which looked back in the sky and saw the Demon King and Demon Queen greeting Zhuo Changlu and Wu Yuding with smiles on their faces. She could not help but be confused. What the hell, what is going on? What kind of god is this? I invited you to fight, to risk your lives, to save the Zhu Wu people. Why did you come here as if you were visiting relatives? Welcome to the left minister of the astral souls to the Demon King's palace. Demon Queen, she said very politely. Seeing this, Demon King Jun could not help but be stunned. He had really forgotten how long it had been since his queen had lowered herself like this. After thinking for a while, he reacted and said with a smile, Yes, yes. The left minister of the astral souls, Yu Ji, has come to the Demon King's palace. You bring light to our humble abode. Welcome, welcome. Bring light to our humble abode? Welcome, welcome. The few demon crown princes on the side stared at the Demon King's palace, which had been beaten into a mess by this family. Then they looked at the many injured guards around them and the demon gods who had joined forces to protect the Demon King's palace, but could not bear the burden. They were vomiting blood and suffering from internal injuries. They could not help but fall into deep thought. Imperial Father and Imperial Mother, this is probably the first time in so many years that we have been so puzzled by the actions of the two of you. Just a moment ago, you were fighting with this family to the death, and you wanted to kill them as soon as possible. Why are you treating them like distinguished guests now? That tone, it was not only approachable, it was as if he was calling out to his friends and relatives, all right? We can't understand no matter what. This family helped the Wu people to cultivate. Not only did they destroy our Demon King's palace, but they also saved the 8 Zhu Wu and almost burned the Fusong Divine Tree to ashes. Our Demon Crown Princes were also beaten miserably. How did they become our distinguished guests in the blink of an eye? Their faces changed faster than flipping a book. Damn, their faces changed faster than flipping a book. Can it be used like this? Demon Master Kuan Peng turned into a golden-robed man and stood outside. At this moment, he could not help but take a step forward and said, "Your Majesty, you are." "My dear minister, there is no need to say more. I have my own ideas." Demon Emperor D. Jun smiled slightly, but his smile had a different charm. Demon Master Kuan Peng had followed him for countless years. How could he not know that there must be another reason here? Dong Wang Tai also descended from the sky and said, "Oh, I'm late. What happened just now? Why is it so messy here? Who dares to stir up trouble in the territory of the demon clan? I will not let them off easily." Everyone, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan. The two of them had the same thought in their minds at the same time. A veteran actor is indeed a veteran actor. His tone is flawless, and his singing and acting are perfect. Even we, who know the ins and outs of the story, can't see any flaws. When you asked the question just now, if we only heard the surprise in your tone and the confusion on your face, we almost thought that the one who was drinking with the 8 Zhu Wu down there was not you. Demon Emperor Di Jun sighed and said, "Second brother is here." Just now, the Wu people sneaked into the Demon King's palace and saved the 8 Zhu Wu. From now on, there will be a lot of trouble in this world. "Oh," Dong Wang Tai stomped his feet and said, "There is such a thing. The 8 Zhu have been sealed for a long time. Even if they break free, it will be difficult for them to recover their cultivation in a short time. The rest of the witches are just SOSO. Wait for me to catch them and bring them back." "No need. The great world is coming. It is time for the Zhu Wu to come out and stir up trouble again. Big brother is right. Then let them go for now. We will meet again in the Jianghu." "Second brother, let me introduce you. These four are the backbone of the human clan in the ancestral land. They are the Sky Patrol minister and his wife and their son and daughter-in-law. This time, they came with the Wu people. Now, they are honorable guests." "Honorable guests? Big brother, are you confused? They are our enemies. I have my own plans. I still don't understand. You will understand when you come in." Dong Wang stopped talking nonsense and said to the demons around him, "I will go in with my brother. You don't need to care too much. Since my brother said that they are honorable guests, then they're honorable guests. Anything related to them must be a good thing. Go and heal your wounds. It is so embarrassing to be beaten up like this in your own home." As he said, he threw out a few bottles of elixirs. The Kuan-Pung demon master, several princes, and countless demon gods bowed and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty Dong Wang." Some of them hesitated and went to heal their wounds. With His Majesty Dong Wang here, he can stop the demon emperor from making any stupid decisions. We just need to wait for the result. The more Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan looked at it, the more they felt like they were losing their minds. Damn it. Chapter 1392. These two brothers were singing the same tune. They had forcefully acted out this illogical drama. Zhuo Xiaoduo suddenly had a thought. Could it be that for these millions of years, the two of them sang the same tune and coaxed their way through? For example, if the demon race wanted to do something big, everyone wanted to do it, but the two emperors didn't. Hence, Emperor Jun first agreed, and Dong Wang then rushed over to explain the situation. Then, they could turn the situation around and make the entire demon race united, singing and dancing happily. He then turned to look at the princes and demon immortals, including the Kuan-Ping demon master, who all looked relieved. It seemed like everything was fine now that Dong Wang was here. From the looks of it, even though his guess wasn't correct, it wasn't far off, especially when he vaguely heard a certain demon god say confidently, "His Majesty is wise and mighty. His martial prowess is invincible. His Majesty the Eastern Sovereign's ability to see the big picture is unparalleled in the world." With His Majesty the Demon Emperor and His Majesty the Eastern Sovereign, with both His Majesty the Eastern Sovereign working together, there will be no mistakes, no mistakes. Sounds of agreement could be heard everywhere. It seemed like the concept of His Majesty's martial arts are invincible, and Dong Wang's foresight is unparalleled, had been deeply rooted. Zhuo Xiaoduo, who received further confirmation, couldn't help but prostrate himself in admiration. These two crows, they are really good at acting. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would have believed it. That I wonder if this trick can be applied to me and Li Chenglong. I'm invincible in martial arts, and Li Chenglong's ability to see the big picture is unparalleled. It seems that it can be applied. Isn't life like a play, and everything depends on acting skills? When I go back, I'll think about it. It seems like there's a lot of room for improvement. After that, there were no more obstacles. The family of four was welcomed by the Demon Emperor and Demon Empress Dongwang and entered the Demon Emperor Palace. That after entering, the Demon Emperor dismissed his subordinates and used the Book of Luo. Everyone present disappeared from the palace and entered the world of the Book of Luo. Here, a tea table was already set up, and the fragrance of tea rose in spirals. Please, even though the Demon Emperor and Demon Empress were already burning with anxiety, they still forced themselves to remain calm and entertained the guests calmly. The Demon Emperor even calmly introduced the origin of the tea leaves to them. Dongwang Tai also cooperated and told a few ancient jokes, which made everyone laugh, and the atmosphere became more harmonious. Xiao Duo and Zhuo Xiaoyan were smiling, but they were inexplicably nervous. Looking at the Demon Emperor and Demon Empress situation, how could the two of them not understand? There could only be one reason why the three big shots of the Demon Clan were willing to lower themselves like this, and that was for Zhao's sake. It was the seventh prince, Yiqiong. The two of them felt gratified, but also inexplicably terrified. She was planning to get her child back, but in her heart, why was she so reluctant? The urge to run away rose and fell, and it was constantly budding to finally, it was Zhuo Chonglu who broke the stalemate and changed the topic. Your Majesty, now is the clear sky tribulation. I wonder what the Demon Clan plans to do in the future. Do you want to recreate the glory of the past when the Demon Clan ruled the land of ancestors? Zhuo Chonglu's words were not baseless. The Demon Clan was the strongest among the various races, and this had always been an indisputable fact. During the Great Shaman-Demon War, the Demon Clan won in the end and became the main character of the world. They established the heavenly court and stood above all living beings in this world. Their glory was unparalleled, and the entire Demon Clan was proud of it. Now that the immeasurable tribulation was about to begin, with the Demon Clan's strength, it was inevitable that they would fight for the main character of the world again. Demon Emperor Jun sighed softly and said, I won't deny it. This immeasurable tribulation is about to begin, and it's extremely disadvantageous for the Demon Clan. Not to mention fighting for the main character of the world. I don't even know if we can survive and not be wiped out. Now that the immeasurable tribulation is about to begin, there are already countless schemes and cruelties hidden within. The Demon Clan has never been afraid of fighting, let alone fighting. However, we hate schemes, or rather we fear schemes. On the surface, the Demon Clan's strength can be said to be the strongest among all the races, and they're a strong contender for the winner of this immeasurable tribulation. However, it is also because of this that the Demon Clan has become the target of public criticism. Demon Emperor Jun picked up his teacup and drank some tea. His expression was rather worried. Although the various clans and sects seemed to be fighting each other, attacking each other, and fighting chaotically, one thing has long been destined. If they do not first destroy the Demon Clan, or beat them below the average line, there will not be a true life and death battle. Just look at the recent series of battles. Although there are countless casualties among the various races, the real high level and the real peak combat power have almost no losses. From this, it is not difficult to guess. All the chaotic battles so far are merely probing and deceiving battles. Through local battles, they achieve certain goals. That's all. With the current battle level, it is far from the point where the various races are at odds with each other. Demon Emperor Jun sneered, but if it is only this kind of scheming, this kind of strategy is too clumsy. As for your action of rescuing Zhu Wu today, we have already expected it. and even Kunpeng has also guessed it. That's why he specially came back to deal with it. However, he is preparing to catch all of you in one net and completely cut off the Wu people's top combat power that can affect this immeasurable tribulation. When the Demon Emperor said this is what Changlu and Wu Yuding subconsciously took a cold breath. Thinking about the lineup of the Demon Clan, with the 4 magnates together, the possibility of catching the 6 senior sorcerers and the 4 members of the Zhua family in one net was not small. It was almost certain. The purpose of this rescue mission was to catch the enemy off guard, to catch them off guard, and to gamble on a fluke. Since the Demon Clan had already prepared, they had already cut off the Wu people's chance to break the seal. But if we do that, we will fall into the trap of others. Of course, we can catch all of you in one net, but in the future, we will have to face the situation of being the enemy of the whole world. Once all of you die in the Demon Imperial Palace, the combined strength of the Sorcerer tribe will be wiped out, and the rest will not be able to withstand a single blow. In order to avoid becoming the next Sorcerer tribe, all the other tribes can only unite against a common enemy and attack the Demon Clan. Only by completely wiping out the Demon Clan will you have a way out. I can even imagine how great the emotions in the continent of the shamans will be when all the elites die. With the shamans' natural disposition to fight against the heavens and the earth and never surrender, they will definitely take revenge. But as long as they come, none of them will be able to return. The shamans will be the first race to be completely destroyed. The first race to be eliminated in the immeasurable tribulation will definitely be the Wu people. But when the Wu people are exterminated, no one will care that it was the Wu people who took the initiative to attack. The fact that the Demon Clan was forced to fight back will only further show the strength and brutality of the Demon Clan. At that time, everyone will be in danger. If there is any provocation, they will all attack together. And your help. If your families all die in the Demon Palace, not only will the Primordial Beginning and the Tongtian Sages not let us go, the Rin School, the Chan School, and the Jie School will also take revenge for you. You don't even need to think about the names. What's more, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, who have always been hiding and never participated in any disputes, will most likely leave their secluded places to participate in the war against the Demon Clan. Once the Demon Clan and the Human Clan start a final battle, even Her Majesty Empress Hua will not be able to support the Demon Clan. The best result is that she will not help either side. By that time, the Demon Clan will definitely be the second race to be exterminated after the Wu people. In the immeasurable tribulation, the second race to die. This scheme is indeed the scheme of the sages. They defeated the 3 strongest tribes in one fell swoop. After the war, they will clean up the mess. There will be too many experts who will convert from then on. This is the scheme of the sages. Half of it is an open scheme, and the other half is a conspiracy. Demon Emperor Jun smiled bitterly. We have deduced this result many times after knowing that you are coming to rescue Zuwu. On the surface, a few Grand Magi and a few human experts can't involve too much karma. But after a deep analysis, the variables caused by this will have far-reaching effects. Demon Emperor Jun sighed. Even the death of a sage is not as great as the karma of killing you rescuers. So we have decided to do the opposite. Since the era of great battle is coming, we might as well borrow your hands to release the 8 Zhu Wu. When the 8 Zhu Wu return to the world, the Wu people will instantly become as strong as they were during the immeasurable tribulation of the shamans and demons. The Demon Clan will no longer be the only one. At that time, it will be uncertain who will become the target of public criticism. I believe that when this change comes, the chaotic situation will only be more chaotic than chaotic. With the Wu people's temperament of fighting against the heavens and earth, when the 8 Zhu Wu return, their comprehensive combat strength will leap to the forefront of all races. No one will be able to ignore their existence. And most importantly, that sage's wishful thinking of driving the tiger to devour the wolf and reaping the benefits of the fisherman will also fail. Although the Demon Clan has released a strong enemy and will inevitably start another war in the future, we have avoided falling into other people's schemes. This is enough to be gratified. I see. So this is the truth. Zhua Changlu nodded and said, then the future of the human race and the demon clan. Have you thought about it, Demon Emperor? Demon Emperor June paused for a moment and smiled bitterly. This was the question he was most unwilling to answer at the moment, and even the question he was most unwilling to face, because it would offend too much. The Demon Emperor pondered for a moment before he said faintly, in the future, if there are only 2 or 3 races left that still have the power to fight, and there are both humans and demons among them, then a battle between us is still unavoidable. This is the heavenly tribulation of the Qing dynasty. Other than the immeasurable tribulation, it is also the tribulation of all races. In the future, only one race will be left, and it will be the ruler of this world, the protagonist of heaven and earth. The other races will either be destroyed or fall into decline. If there is a choice, I believe that many races will hope that their own race can leave the ancestral land mainland to protect their race. But now that the ancestral land has been restored and the mainland has just been reunited, the matter of splitting the mainland will definitely not happen a second time. Then, if you don't want to be destroyed and fall into decline, the only way is to fight to the death and fight for a golden age of glory. In the future, perhaps, it will be inevitable for you and I to fight to the death. The Demon Emperor looked at Zhuo Changlu and said faintly, so your cultivation must be strengthened. I don't want to, in the final battle, to defeat you so easily. The Demon Emperor's words could be said to be extremely honest, without the slightest bit of trickery. For a moment, everyone fell into silence. It was true that in the future, the entire mainland could only allow one race to exist and become the ruler, the protagonist of heaven and earth. In the future, unless the heavenly tribulation started again, it would be the protagonist of heaven and earth. Then, which leader would be willing to see his own race eliminated, destroyed, and fall into decline? Regardless of personal relationship, regardless of any grudges or karma, when the time comes, under the premise of the survival of the race, they would have to give it their all and fight to the death. No matter how much they appreciated each other, no matter how close they were to each other, it was meaningless in front of their standpoint. Not only the demon race. If in the future, only the astral souls and the Umno Alliance were left, the situation in front is with Changlu and the flood, which would also be the same. So what Changlu said thoughtfully. Under such circumstances, even if the child acknowledges his ancestors and returns to his race, how will he deal with himself in the future? At that time, what do you want him to do? How will he choose? Finally, they were talking about the main topic. No matter how much Zhuo Changlu did not want to be the bad guy, he had to ask the most critical question. The Demon Emperor, Demon Empress, and Donghuang's eyes lit up, but then they fell into silence. That was indeed the case. No matter how the two races fought in the future, it did not matter to Zhuo Changlu, Zhuo Xiaoduo, and the others. Everyone's standpoint was different, and they would still stand on their own side. Only for Xiao, it would be a cruel choice. On one side were his birth parents, and on the other side were his second parents. Should he swing his sword at his birth parents? Or should he start killing his second parents? Zhuo Xiaoduo said, there's an end to heaven and earth, and the future is endless. Who can say for sure what will happen in the future? We are thinking so much now, and so far into the future. Are we worrying too much? Everyone's expression softened a little, and they all felt that Zhuo Xiaoduo's words made sense. At least, it eased the current dilemma. Zhuo Xiaoduo continued. Maybe by that time, the demon race, who is the target of public criticism, will have already been destroyed. We won't have to worry about such a choice at all. Xiao, you just have to think about how to avenge your fellow demon race. Cough, cough. Wu Yuding and Zhuo Changlu choked and coughed at the same time. Duh. The Demon Emperor and Demon Empress Donghuang rolled their eyes at the same time. This brat's first sentence was extremely reasonable, but the next sentence was exceptionally fucked up. Why didn't he say that by that time, the human race might have been completely wiped out? It was so frustrating. Xiao Duo is really straightforward, and he is a straightforward person. The Demon Empress forced a smile and quickly changed the topic. Xiao Duo, when you found Yu Qiong in the Crown Prince Academy, how did you find it? You can tell us in detail. If there are any clues, just tell us in detail. We will judge the details ourselves. So Xiao Duo thought about it and realized that this matter was quite reasonable. At that time, he found the Huahuang sword first, and then he frowned and pondered for a while before saying, at that time, the atmosphere was strange and danger lurked everywhere. At that time, most of my thoughts were on how to escape. To be honest, I really didn't pay attention to any clues or details. You didn't find anything? Forget it, I'll start from the beginning. Whether there is any meaning or not, you can judge for yourselves. You wanted to say that it is strange, but I really can't say. Or rather, it is strange everywhere, and everything is beyond my knowledge. I remember that I went in a train. The situation at that time was really dangerous. It was dangerous at every step, and death was imminent. Strictly speaking, that encounter could be said to be the most dangerous experience Xiao Duo had ever encountered in his life, bar none. Even now, when he thought about it, he still had lingering fears. Naturally, the experience was still fresh in his mind. At that time, the loyal protection of the Seventh Prince's guards was also a shock to Xiao Duo. Therefore, he really remembered it clearly. After I found the Huahuang sword, there were several messages asking for help from the demon immortals. Then, there was the memory playback in the Huahuang sword. I remember that it wasn't that the message couldn't be sent out. At the beginning of the imprisonment, the Huahuang sword had already rushed out with the message in the land of chaos. However, at the last moment, a finger suddenly appeared from the void and changed the direction of the Huahuang sword that was about to break out. There was also some kind of concealment technique. In short, after the Huahuang sword rushed out of the land of chaos, it directly stabbed into a mountain. Then it was exhausted and went deep into the mountain. It was difficult for outsiders to find it. A finger? The Demon Emperor, Dong Wang, and the Demon Empress all became nervous at the same time. They asked at the same time, what kind of finger? A finger. It's a finger, a white finger. Oh, that's right. There seems to be a circle of white light lingering on it. Is there anything else special about it? Something else. It seems like there is. It's what Xiao Duo recalled and said that finger, when it pushed the Huahuang sword away, it seemed to say 2 words. 2 words? The Demon Emperor's eyes were sharp. What words? On me. So Xiao Duo said, 2 words that I haven't had enough of. On me. Dong Wang, the Demon Emperor, and the Demon Empress snorted at the same time, their eyes shining fiercely. Pa! The Demon Emperor crushed the teacup in his hand and gritted his teeth. As expected, it's that bald donkey again. How long are you going to scheme? You actually set up a killing trap so long ago. You're really crazy. Dijun, will be irreconcilable with you for the rest of my life. It was because of Yu Qiong's incident that the Demon Master Kuan Peng of the Demon Clan was almost forced to leave. The Demon Court almost fell apart. If the Demon Emperor did not believe that the Demon Master Kuan Peng would not do such a thing, the Demon Master would have left with grievances. Now that they thought about the past, how could the 3 Demon Clan giants not be filled with righteous indignation? Both sides confirmed and thought about this matter repeatedly. Xiao Duo also took out the Huahuang sword to prove it. All the doubts of the previous years were solved. Demon Emperor Jun, Dong Wang, and Tai Yi all sighed. Unknown child is now. The Demon Empress was a little expectant. Xiao Duo coughed and said, Xiao is out now. You're all shaken up. After a long separation, you probably have endless things to talk about. Now, I have other things to do here. I'm not done yet. Why don't? What else? When I was training in the mountains and rivers, I found the Azure Dragon Temple at the foot of the Whitehead Mountain. There was only a wisp of the Azure Dragon, Lord Soul, left. At that time, the few of us also obtained some of the Azure Dragon, Lord's inheritance. So Xiao Duo said, before the Azure Dragon Lord died, he asked me to pass a message to you. Demon Emperor Jun's eyes focused and muttered, Azure Dragon Lord, Azure Dragon. He took a deep breath and said, What did Azure Dragon say in the end? Azure Dragon Lord asked me to tell you that Azure Dragon did not let you down in this life. Zwishaoduo said each word clearly. Azure Dragon did not let you down in this life. Demon Emperor sighed sadly. I should have thought of this. When the demon court was first established, the 4 poles were unstable. Therefore, the 4 cardinal saints were appointed. They were Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. When Azure Dragon was appointed, I did not trust him very much because he was from the dragon race. Back then, I said something. I said, Azure Dragon, today I appoint you as Azure Dragon Lord. There are 4 poles in the sky, and Azure Dragon guards the east. I only hope that you will not let me down in this life. Later, Azure Dragon guarded the east of the 4 poles. He was loyal and devoted, and made the east of the 4 poles become the most stable part of the 4 poles. However, Azure Dragon was still brooding about what I said back then. Demon Emperor stood up, picked up a cup of wine, and faced the east. Azure Dragon, brother, you did not let me down in this life. He gently poured a cup of wine on the ground and said softly, how I wish that you were the one to say these words to me in front of me. He poured himself a cup of wine and drank it in one gulp. I will allow you to guard the east. Although I had my doubts when I was conferred the title, I have never doubted you for 1,000,000 years. If I had investigated you, you would have thrown this sentence in my face long ago. I did not expect that a doubt back then and 1,000,000 years of trust later would cause you to worry. Azure Dragon, as the Demon Emperor and the Master of the Heavenly Courts, I will seize the destiny of the world and use the destiny of the primordial world to steal a corner of the heavenly Tao. As the Demon Emperor spoke, his body suddenly emitted a rich yellow light that shot into the sky. Just as the yellow light was at its densest, the Demon Emperor took a step forward and 7 stars shone beneath his feet. He stepped on the 7 stars and pointed his sword at the sky. His left hand was like a sword, and a ray of light pierced towards the east. His voice was like thunder, and space trembled. I will allow you, Azure Dragon, to have a next life. With a boom, an illusory green dragon shadow appeared from the east. With a flip, it soared into the clouds and disappeared into the clouds. A golden ray of lux split from the Demon Emperor's body and caught up to the dragon shadow that had already disappeared. Well done, big brother. Dongwang Tai cheered loudly. The yellow light on the Demon Emperor's body slowly dissipated and was absorbed into his body. He smiled faintly. Azure Dragon, I have not let you down. With this conferment, the Azure Dragon will guard the east forever. The dragon totem is indestructible. The incense will flourish and the future will be promising. It's just a little bit of effort. The Demon Emperor was a little disappointed. He looked up at the sky, as if he was still searching for the illusory dragon shadow just now. He said, it's a pity that even if the Azure Dragon returns, he is no longer the brother Azure Dragon of the past. Another cup of wine was downed in one gulp. Zwishaoduo's heart was a little shaken. It had to be said that although they would definitely be opponents in the future, the Demon Emperor and Donghuang's magnanimity made Zwishaoduo secretly admire them. He thought of the ancient experts he had seen. Apart from Mingyi, the others included Luo Ho of the Demon Clan, Duo Bao, Tongtan, the Demon Emperor, Donghuang, Kun Peng, Zhu Wu, and even Juni, who did not sit down in the Purple Cloud Palace, that all of them were indeed worthy of the ancient legends. Every one of them had their own unique demeanor and bearing. Every one of them had their own charm. In fact, until now, in Zwishaoduo's heart, he had not even found any enemy that he had to kill quickly. Every one of them was so respectable and worthy of respect. Moreover, every one of them was so cute. Even if the Western Juni was constantly scheming, he was always scheming for the Western sect, not for himself. He could even sacrifice everything in order to prosper the Western sect. He could even give up the position of a saint. Everything was for the sake of using the ideals in his heart and the orthodoxy of the Western sect to educate the world and save all living beings. In the eyes of others, such as the Jie School, the Demon Clan, the Wu people, and so on, They all felt that this bald donkey was really detestable. However, in Juni's heart, he was magnanimous and calm. He never thought that he was wrong. What he did was for the Western sect, for the sake of all living beings in the world, and for the sake of all living beings. For this, I can give up everything. I can sacrifice everything. I only have glory, only glory. Where the Tao is, there is no fear of suffering. Even if there is 10,000 deaths, there is no fear. Because this is my Tao. Therefore, in this world, it was really hard to tell right from wrong. Seeing the gloomy atmosphere, Zhuo Xiaoduo raised his eyebrows and said, "Actually, Zhao's memory has been restored." I said that I wrote this chapter twice. You definitely won't believe me. However, I really wrote it twice. After the first time, I revised it several times. I felt that it didn't taste right, so I deleted it and wrote it again. In my career as a writer, this is one of the few times I've experienced something like this. I, who have always been afraid of not writing enough, actually have such a time when I strive for perfection. I have indeed grown up. However, I feel that I can still live up to the reputation of these ancient sages. I wrote it more maturely. I praised myself and escaped. Chapter 1393. His memory has been restored. Hearing that her son's memory had been restored, the demon empress lost her composure and stood up abruptly. She even knocked over her chair, but she couldn't care less. There was only anticipation in her eyes. Where is he now? Right here. Zhuo Xiaoduo sighed. Right here. As he spoke, he opened the space-exterminating pagoda, and a ball of fire rushed out. It circled in the air and turned into a 17 or 18-year-old young man, dressed in a black robe. The young man was tall, had a handsome face, and his movements were brimming with an indescribable sense of nobility and elegance. It was the innate aura of royalty. Even though he was still young, the majestic aura of a sovereign descending upon the world and illuminating the world had already begun to take form. Who else could it be but the seventh prince of the demon clan, Yiqiong? At this moment, he was looking at the demon emperor and demon empress emotionally. Tears finally fell from his eyes. Father, mother, I am back. Xiao knelt on the ground. Little seven. The demon emperor trembled. Xiong, the demon empress screamed and rushed forward, hugging her son tightly in her arms. She closed her eyes and let her tears fall. She hugged him so tightly that she was afraid that if she let go, her son would disappear again. He was gone. Even with the demon empress, an ancient expert, this cry lasted for more than 10 minutes. She still couldn't control it. Wu Yuding's heart ached when she saw this, and she felt the same way. She turned to look at Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan. Zhuo Xiaoduo looked at her in a daze, while Zhuo Xiaoyan's eyes were red. She was obviously touched, but that the two of you, no matter how touched you are, can't compare to what a mother can feel. Poor parents. Zhuo Chonglu sighed softly. The demon emperor Jun used his power to evaporate the tears that were about to fall from his eyes. He forced a calm and indifferent expression and laughed bitterly. Zidong has lost her composure. I'm sorry for making a fool of myself. My true feelings are revealed. How can you laugh at me? Please have some wine. The demon emperor raised a cup of tea and invited them calmly and generously. Big brother, this is tea. Dong Wang coughed. Scram. The demon emperor flew into a rage out of humiliation. I said it's wine, so it's wine. Are you questioning this emperor's authority? Okay. Dong Wang waved his hand, and the tea on the table was replaced with wine. He smiled and said, if Big Brother says it's wine, then it must be wine. Even if Big Brother says it's urine, I can change it for you. Scram. The demon emperor's previous order to scram was only a light shout. However, this order was like a bolt from the blue, ringing in everyone's hearts. Elder brother, please calm down. I've already changed it for wine. I'll kill you. The demon emperor did not waste any more words. He grabbed Dong Wang and started punching and kicking him. His face was red, and he was extremely embarrassed. So be it. Now that the situation had come to this, he was destined to be humiliated in front of everyone. Then, He would vent his anger by beating this guy up. After a series of punches, Dong Wang staggered 100 feet to the left, 100 feet to the right, and another 100 feet to the back. After a long while, he finally let out a sigh of relief. After such a ruckus, the Demon Emperor's emotions finally calmed down. He regained the composure of an emperor, but his anger had not yet dissipated. He glared fiercely at Dong Wang. What a joke. Where did your hundreds of Yuan Hui's worth of cultivation go to? In a split second, Dong Wang, who had been given a good beating just now, became sanctimonious again. He took the lead to sit at the table and drink. His actions were calm, and his face was still as handsome and elegant as before. All his actions were so smooth and practiced, as if he had done it hundreds or thousands of times. The Demon Emperor said angrily in a low voice, "Why don't you go and persuade Shihi?" Dong Wang rolled his eyes and said, "Why don't you go? She has suppressed her emotions for so many years. This time, if you don't let her cry to her heart's content, you know the consequences. Why don't I go and persuade her now? Anyway, you'll bear the consequences. Hold it in. Don't." The Demon Emperor waved his hand repeatedly. "Let her cry. No one can persuade her." Then he turned to Zhuo Chonglu. The two emperors regained their composure, shook their heads, and sighed. "I'm sorry. Women's emotions are so fragile." Zhuo Chonglu and his family almost laughed out loud. This way of venting their emotions to the emperors of the demon race was actually the same as Zhuo Xiao was not enough. Thus, while everyone was whispering to each other, the demon empress and Xiao were whispering to each other on the other side. From time to time, they would even sob. Seeing that most of their emotions had been vented, Wu Yuding got up and went over to comfort them. When Xiao saw Wu Yuding coming over, he, who was still sobbing, instinctively called out, "Grandma is here." Grandma Shihi's sadness instantly stopped, and her mind went blank. Wu Yuding, who had just walked over, also felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She only felt dizzy and distracted. At this moment, her mind also went blank, just like the Demon Empress. Grandma, the issue of seniority. It had been there for a long time. However, after Wu Yuding, Zhuo Chonglu, and the Demon Emperor's family met, they avoided talking about the issue of seniority. After Xiao Zhao's sudden outburst, there was no way to turn the situation around. The Demon Emperor's eyes widened, and he couldn't maintain his composure. He grimaced, and his face twisted as if he had a toothache. Dong Wang, on the other hand, rolled his eyes and looked at the sky. Then, he lowered his head and looked at the ground. Finally, he grabbed his wine cup and studied it seriously. It was as if he couldn't hear or see anything else between heaven and earth. Demon Empress Shihi's slender hands didn't say anything for a long time. Then, they began to tremble slightly. No matter what kind of ancient almighty you were, no matter how high your cultivation was, no matter how powerful your identity was, your son still called someone else grandma. This was an irrefutable fact. Actually, it made sense. What else could he call his mother other than grandma? This was something that couldn't be changed no matter what. At the same time, it was also a fact that had to be faced. Xiao Yiqiong obviously realized that his unintentional words had caused a huge awkwardness. However, he didn't know how to deal with it. He was dumbfounded and stunned on the spot. He scratched his head and turned to look at Zhuo Xiaoduo with a silly look. His meaning couldn't be more obvious. "Mommy, you have to come out and clean up the mess." This was a routine. In the past, whenever Xiao caused trouble, especially when Xiao Duo was unreasonable, he would ask Zhuo Xiaoduo for help with this look. Basically, it worked every time. When Xiao Duo helped, everything would be fine. Although he had recovered his memory, his dependence on him for so many years had become a habit. When Zhuo Xiaoduo saw the young demon crown prince, Yiqiong, who had transformed into a human form, acting like a child, he was dumbfounded. "Looking for me? What's the use of looking for me?" So, he scratched his head and turned to look at Zhuo Chonglu. His intention couldn't be more obvious. "Dad, you have to go out and clean up the mess." Xiao Yiqiong was speechless. He really didn't expect that his past experience, which had almost become a habit of his, would be useless. Obviously, He was used to it and ignored the current situation. In the past, when he caused trouble, all the locations were inside the Tower of Empyrean Destruction, and the people he provoked were none other than the Huang sword, Bai, Jiao, Yin Shirsi, and so on. As the owner of the Tower of Empyrean Destruction, Xiaoduo, except for the Huang sword, of course, his words were the law and his orders were strictly enforced. Even the Huang sword would at most mutter a few words and ask for some resources. Everything would be reduced to a small matter. However, what kind of situation was it today? How could emirs with Xiaoduo have so much power? It can only be said that Xiao Yiqiong was too used to being a Xiao and overestimated his mommy. In the current situation, this backing could no longer be relied on. So Changlu smiled bitterly, but could only bite the bullet and explain, this. Ha! Today is the day that the Demon King's family is reunited. It's a great thing. You don't have to care about some minor details. Words were able to ease the situation that was impossible to ease. The Demon King grimaced as if he had a toothache. He looked at Zhuo Changlu with a strange expression. His eyes were almost wrinkled into his nose, and he hissed, "Not bad, not bad. This is a great thing, a great thing." Ha! Dong Wang continued to study the wine cup. It was as if the wine cup was mixed with the rise and fall of the ancient times. It was worth studying. After a while, Zhuo Changlu smiled bitterly again. This is also a matter of fate. The children are young and inexperienced. They don't know the importance of things. Although it was an unintentional fact, it also created this difficult-to-face reality. Zhuo Changlu sighed as he spoke. The Demon King sighed as he listened. Wu Yuding and the Demon Empress pretended not to hear, but in fact they were waiting with their ears perked up. So Changlu knew very well that it was impossible for the Demon King and the Demon Empress to truly acknowledge this relationship and call him uncle and auntie. It was even more impossible than a fantasy. If the Demon Emperor and Demon Empress were to become friends with Xiaoduo as equals, these two almighties could still accept it if they pinched their noses. However, if they were to say that the two of them were a generation higher than the two of them, that was definitely impossible. It was not impossible for them to fall out on the spot. In fact, it was not only the Demon King who refused to admit it. Zhuo Changlu and Wu Yuding also did not dare to admit it. Even if the Demon King admitted it, Zhuo Changlu and Wu Yuding still did not dare to agree. Once they agreed, they would be of the same generation as the Dao ancestor and the Demon ancestor. They would even be half a generation above the three pure ones. Would you dare to agree? This was a huge issue that involved the seniority of all the experts in the primordial world. It was a huge matter. If one day they met the heavenly lord of primordial beginning, would Zhuo Changlu dare to be thick-skinned and greet him as hello, elder brother? If he really dared to do so, just the Jade Voids, Guang Chengzi, and company would tear him apart alive. After thinking about it, the Demon King refused to comply. Zhuo Changlu also did not dare to do so. Both of them had the same thoughts, so it was naturally easier to communicate. Zhuo Changlu and the Demon King looked at each other and laughed awkwardly. Ahem, ha. Ahem. This. You go first. No, you go first. The Demon King refused to speak first, and his attitude was unusually firm. I'm a fucking generation lower than him now. Why should I say anything first? Chapter 1394. Me first. Zhuo Changlu couldn't help but think of his relationship with Lei Changtian. He thought, how about I call you Big Brother, and you call me Father? But no matter what, he didn't dare to say this out loud. If he said it out loud, the Demon King and Dong Wang would go crazy. This is the Demon Palace. He had to be steady. So Changlu pondered for a moment and said, Xiao Duo once told me about an unofficial history book. A certain sect's junior brother was humorous and absurd by nature, and he had a childish temper. One day, he forced his martial nephew to become sworn brothers with him, and they had no choice but to agree. After that, the martial nephew said to his own martial nephew, Martial uncle is naive and unrestrained, and doesn't care about worldly seniority. It's common for people to be in disarray in the Jianghu, but because of fate, let's talk about our own. I think it's the same for the current situation, but because of fate, let's talk about our own. Strictly speaking, Zhuo Zhonglu's words seem to be reasonable. However, he really didn't have any confidence in them. But as he said before, the most important thing was the situation. If the other party was willing to compromise, then speaking without confidence was also a myth. The Demon King rubbed his palms and laughed. Not bad, not bad. Good idea. Let's talk about our own, it's good. The Jianghu has always been in disarray. Not caring about worldly seniority is the right thing to do. We are all people who have transcended the world. How can we be bound by it? Ha, good. Dong Wang stopped studying the wine cup and raised his head. It's good to talk about our own. But how exactly? The Demon King said straightforwardly, Xiao Duo and Little Nian are Yiqiong's second parents. Of course they are of the same generation as us. This can't be messed up. Big Brother is right. Dong Wang nodded, his face red. This is Yiqiong's fate, and also everyone's fate. We in the left minister. Cough, cough, cough. We have been friends for a long time, and we have heard of his name, so also this. The Demon King stuttered as he spoke. Even if he was the emperor of a generation, he still couldn't speak smoothly. You and his son are of the same generation. Then, he would treat her father as an equal. Everyone's approval was one thing, but how they declared it was another. Dong Wang sighed in his heart when he saw his elder brother in a difficult position. However, his face immediately revealed a look of generosity as he slapped his thigh and laughed heartily. We are all at the peak of our respective races. Of course, we are peers. What's there to hide, right? It had to be said that a veteran was indeed a veteran. His Majesty Dong Wang could play the role of a sovereign overlooking the world. He could also play the role of a commander-in-chief. He could also play the role of a benevolent elder. And he could also play the role of a strategist. Now, when he played this kind of second-rate character, he was astonishingly lifelike, and his acting was so good that it was almost bone-piercing. In short, all the embarrassing things were done by Dong Wang. Whatever Big Brother can't do, I'll do it. It's that simple. Demon Emperor D. Jun heaved a sigh of relief. He gave Dong Wang a look of approval and said, although second brother is usually like this, what you said now is really right. I think so too. Dong Wang lowered his head and rolled his eyes. He thought to himself, what can I say wrong? This is something you can't say out loud. Besides, what do you mean I'm usually like this? Am I the kind of person who is usually like this? Isn't it all because of you? If it wasn't for Big Sister, I wouldn't have bothered with you. However, I've accompanied you, Big Brother, to act for my whole life. Up until today, I've tried every role that my acting career up until now can be considered flat in every field. In every field, there's a Best Actor trophy. Isn't this what it means to say that life is like a drama, and drama is like life? Is it easy for me? With a brother like you, I'll be like this for the rest of my life. What can I do if I don't accept my fate? On the other side, Zhuo Zhonglu also clapped his hands and laughed. Great minds think alike. I think so too. For a moment, the three old men were all grinning from ear to ear, as if they had put down their worries. It's settled. Demon Emperor's brain also became flexible. He said, for Yaqiong, it's not hard to distinguish, right? Xia and I are his parents. Xiao Duo and Xiao Nian are his parents. Second brother is naturally his uncle. As for brother Zhuo and sister-in-law, cough cough, brother Zhuo and sister-in-law. Demon Emperor paused. He wanted to say brother Zhuo and sister-in-law. However, when he thought about how he had just pulled her down from the position of an elder and then called her sister-in-law, it seemed that he had the intention to push his luck. It didn't make sense. He couldn't even get past him, let alone others. Therefore, he changed his words to sister-in-law at the last minute that he still wanted to continue. Cough, cough, cough. Yes, brother Zhuo and sister-in-law are naturally his grandparents. Let's talk about our own matters. The Jianghu is chaotic, and fate brings us together. That's right. There is no conflict at all. No conflict. Demon Emperor Dijuan waved his hands and used gestures to increase the persuasiveness of his words. He tried his best to explain. He is Yaqiong and seventh brother here. He is Xiao over there. There is no problem. Yaqiong is the seventh prince of the demon clan. Xiao is the successor of the astral souls. They are not the same thing. They can't be regarded as the same person. There is no problem with your words. Demon Emperor slapped his thigh. Zhuo Changlu and Dong Wang Tai looked serious. Yes, there is no problem. There is no conflict at all. On the other side, the Xiao Duo and the Xiao Nian were dumbfounded as they looked at the three old men whose faces were as thick as the city walls. They were flattering each other, as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. They heard that the identities of the two of them were arranged in various ways. As the direct parties, they were not even qualified to speak. On the other side, Shiha and Wu Yuding covered their faces. They felt too ashamed to face anyone that the words made no sense. The group of men in a remote corner flattered each other and explained to each other. There was nothing wrong with it. It was like three people discussing mathematics together. One said, 1 + 1 = 9. There is no problem with that, right? The other two agreed at the same time. There is no problem with that. 1 + 1 = 9. There is no problem with that. Shiha was embarrassed because of Demon Emperor Dijuan. He had almost lost his mind because of this issue. It was too embarrassing. Besides, he felt that it was not right to forcefully suppress his seniority. But he had to do it. That on the other hand, Wu Yuding's dilemma had a different feeling, because she thought of her own family. Zhuo Changlu and Lei Changtian were sworn brothers. Zhuo Changlu was the eldest. As Lei Changtian's daughter, she was married to Zhuo Changlu, her father's eldest. Therefore, Zhuo Changlu called Lei Changtian second brother. Sometimes, he would also call him father-in-law. However, Lei Changtian still called Zhuo Changlu eldest brother. He had never called him son-in-law, because he did not dare. In other words, she was originally 1 generation younger. However, because she married the wrong person, she was promoted by 1 generation. This was only the problem of her own generation. After having a son and daughter, it was even more chaotic. A son was both a son and a son-in-law. A daughter was both a daughter and a daughter-in-law. If it was her, she was both a mother-in-law and a mother-in-law. Zhuo Changlu was also a father-in-law and a father-in-law. That was not all. Who asked her adopted daughter to marry her biological son? Since she did not let the fertile water flow to an outsider's field, she had to accept the remaining bits and pieces willingly. In the future, she would also shoulder the burden of her grandparents. Until now, Da Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaonian were fiercely promoted by the Demon Emperor couple. The Demon Emperor lowered his status to be friends with Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaonian. However, the Demon Emperor and her husband were also friends of the same generation. Her son was suddenly promoted to the same generation as her. Do you want my son to call me sister-in-law when he sees me with this move of yours? Demon Emperor Jun? Wu Yuding felt that her brain was about to explode from thinking. However, the more she thought, the more confused she became. She could not understand. They were family of 4, so how could the seniority be so messed up? Moreover, it was the kind of mess that she could not understand even after thinking for a long time. She had to admit that this matter was really troublesome. If she brought her own father into this, her father would call her husband eldest brother, and her son would call her sister-in-law. In that case, the little dog and his grandfather could also call each other brothers. Wouldn't this be even messier than a mess? Well, if her father, that old man, took things too hard and forcefully became sworn brothers with Xiao Duo's little friend, would the story that Changlu mentioned just now happen? Oh my God, a certain god of creation expressed that this relationship was not clear and forced everyone to tacitly stop mentioning the issue of seniority. Then, everyone really stopped mentioning the issue of seniority. Since this matter had already been settled, in order to avoid awkwardness, they would try their best to avoid meeting each other in the future. Thinking about it carefully, this was not a big deal. As long as she deliberately wanted to avoid him, she could guarantee that he would never see her again in this lifetime after today's parting. Thinking about it further, In order to avoid awkwardness when meeting each other, it was to avoid a summit meeting between the demon race and the human race. I'm afraid that the friction between the demon race and the human race would be much smaller because of this. Even if there were incidents, they would be minimized to the greatest extent. Since the knot in their hearts had been resolved, the Demon Emperor and Demon Empress set up a banquet. Dong Wang accompanied everyone to drink, and there were exactly 8 people present. Demon Emperor Jun, Dong Wang, Tai Yi, Demon Empress Shi He, Zhuo Changlu, Wu Yuding, Zhuo Xiaoduo, Zhuo Xiaoyan, and Xiao. Brackets, 7th Prince Yiqiang. The person in charge of turning around and pouring the tea and wine was no longer Zhuo Xiaoduo. It was everyone's junior, Zhao's turn. Everyone mentioned his seniority, except for Xiao Xiao. When Xiao walked to Zhuo Xiaoduo's side with the wine jug, he stammered a few times and did not know how to greet him for a moment. After all, he had now regained his memories, his rationality, and his brain. He was no longer that ignorant little 3-legged golden crow. Naturally, he knew that he could not call Zhuo Xiaoduo mother anymore, but to suddenly call him father. It seemed too sudden and too deliberate. Zhuo Xiaoduo rolled his eyes and said, "Why don't you call me mother?" The dignified 7th Prince's face turned red because of one sentence, and he almost covered his face and ran away. Demon Emperor Dong Wang, Zhuo Changlu, and the others were stunned, but suddenly burst into laughter. The remaining awkwardness from before disappeared. Zhuo Changlu said gently, "When you grow up and become sensible, you should call him father instead. How can you call a man mother?" Xiao was relieved and hurriedly changed his words. Zhuo Xiaoduo agreed readily. He drank a cup of wine together with Zhuo Xiaoyan, who was blushing after being called mother. He said emotionally, "It's not easy. It's really not easy to be a mother for so many years. Cough, the taste is wonderful. Let's discuss when we can make you a younger brother." That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.